Okay. Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Bakari Lumumba, back once again, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe that we can gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. Back once again with the man, the myth, the legend, none other than Mr. International himself, Dynast Amir. How you doing today, brother?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling really, really, really good.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure you're not feeling as good because you're an Ohio State fan, but that's okay.
That's cute.
So you will never feel as good as me because you're an Ohio State fan.
Well, I feel as good as you. You know what? That may be the case, right? But I'm quite sure you weren't feeling that good when you all lost the SEC championship to Alabama. Roll Tide, right? If I bring out an elephant, you're probably gonna run off the screen. So I'm just saying, though.
Hold on, hold on. The Michigan won the national championship, though.
A Big Ten, yeah, the Big Ten.
But they beat y'all.
The Big Ten.
But they beat y'all.
And they beat the brakes off the team that beat y'all.
But they beat y'all.
Okay, that's cute.
But they beat you guys.
Well, we'll see what happens this year. Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. We're back. And, we've been doing this on and offline for about 2 years now. So we're going to have a great conversation today titled, Are You a Pan-Africanist? With Prince Dynast Amir. If you all did not watch our previous dual stream, we had a conversation regarding, can you be a Pan-Africanist and vote Republican? And some of the questions that you asked drew the umbrage of some of the viewers, and I would even say myself as well. But want you all to know this is being done and love. Dynast and I, we talk offline on a regular basis. In fact, we even had a bet on the college football game.
Which
Dynast won, and unfortunately, I paid him right away. Did I pay you right away?
You did. You didn't have to. I was kind of shocked for somebody from Ohio.
Here we go. I wasn't ducking or dodging you.
Especially from Dayton. I was shocked.
Have you ever been to Dayton?
I have not.
Okay, so you're being disingenuous.
But listen, I've been to Akron. I've been to Akron and Cleveland. That's
Akron and Cleveland is in Dayton. And in fact, if it wasn't for Dayton, there wouldn't be any airplanes because the Wright brothers are from Dayton. They invented the airplane.
Okay.
Right, so we're gonna hold that down, right? But I paid you right away. Okay, I mean, it was maybe 2 seconds after the game ended.
But you threw a fit. You threw a little temper tantrum, though.
I know I didn't.
Yes, you did. You threw a
what did I do? What did I do?
You was all mad. You was all quiet. You said, "Man, fuck this shit." No, I didn't. But you paid me.
When the game ended, I didn't say anything. I just logged off and cash apped you. I didn't say anything.
That's not true.
That is true.
Westside Mike says we different in Dayton, especially when it comes to the weight room.
Let me see here. This is true. This is very true. Westside Mike can tell you that. Like, listen, Westside Mike can tell you. I'm like a motivational speaker in the weight room. Okay, because what I'm able to do, and listen, we were supposed to have that battle where on the 225, which is baby weight for me, but for
let's
you,
do it. Listen, let's do it.
But we can't. I have to have surgery on my shoulder on February 19th. So I'm gonna be out of commission for a while.
Hey, listen. A serious note: is your rotator cuff? That's
So I went to the doctor this past Monday. I have a torn rotator cuff and a torn labrum.
Because my rotator cuffs were shot too. Like this one right here is
right. And so some of it is due to the wear and tear of boxing. But the other, I thought your max. I thought 225 was your max.
It probably is.
That's a good one. Well, actually, if you go on my IG page, Body by Lumumba, Suit on Batman, my max is. I have a video of me doing my max, which is 38, which at the time was 380 pounds. At the time, that was 2 years ago.
At UGA, I was hitting 4 plates max.
I'm sorry.
At UGA, I was hitting 4 plates.
You got video?
I don't.
All right, so it didn't happen.
But it's documented.
But here's the thing. The other thing is, what are you doing now? Because it sounds like, matter of fact, as the young people say, it's given has been. That's what the young folks say, right?
Hey, Jay Ledger says the Wright brothers stole airplane patent from a black FBA American. Is that true?
Well, yeah, we're gonna need proof of that, right? You need to substantiate that claim, right? Because I'm familiar with the Wright brothers. Actually worked at the Dayton National Aviation National Dayton Aviation National Park, Dayton Aviation National Park. And so if you're going to make that claim, you have to be able to substantiate it. Don't tell me to fact find. If you make a claim, you need to be able to substantiate it. Black Beauty says, what's your max now, Dynast?
I don't know.
115.
Oh, come on.
So he said, I need proof of that. Squad is king. Squad is king. So yeah, since my shoulders, I'm gonna be out of commission. I have to actually be in a sling, they said, for 6 weeks. So I'm gonna probably be doing legs like 3 times a week until I
need to, because you built like Mr.
Johnny Bravo.
No, yeah, Johnny Bravo. Or is it Mr. Incredible? Which one is it?
But actually, my squat, I can squat a lot. I just have skinny legs. That's the thing. Like that's the thing about it. I just have skinny legs. I don't.
Yeah, so please work on your squats.
That's
like,
cool.
Like a toothpicks. Toothpicks coming out of some skinny jeans.
That's cool. But we're gonna get started. So first and foremost, before we get started, I need to just lay down some ground rules, right? And we will bring people into the chat after we have this initial conversation with Dynast. But here at Lumumba Speaks, diversity of thought is welcome. So it doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right, or even right down the middle, you are welcome here. However, we do push that you make sure that if you make a claim, you can substantiate it. No racial epithets of any kind, no epithets of any kind are allowed on my channel for any reason. If you do engage in that type of language, you will be removed immediately from the broadcast. Once again, this is Lumumba Speaks, is the Black Empowerment Initiative. We believe in the 3 N's of Black power, and those are self-respect, self-defense, and of course self-determination. We believe that we should first and foremost, above all things, respect ourselves as African people. So no epithets of any kind will be used when you are on my broadcast. Number 3, facts over feelings. We want to make sure that we are making claims that are factual, but more so, we want to make sure that if you do disagree with someone, you attack the argument and not the person, right? Facts over feelings, no ad hominems. And then number 4, no fundamentally false statements. You are entitled to your opinion, however. If you have an opinion that LeBron James is the GOAT, right? I think that's nonsensical, but you can have that opinion. You can argue that Georgia is the best team in the SEC. We all know it's Alabama. You can make that argument. But if you were to make a claim that Georgia won the SEC championship this year, that would be something that was fundamentally false. So we want to make sure that we are living in truth and not conjecture and innuendo and, of course, misinformation.
Hey, you want to know a quick fact, Lumumba?
Here we go.
We have beaten Michigan more times in the last 3 years than Ohio State.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Matter of fact, pat yourself on the back. Thank you very much. Our mission here at Lumumba Speaks, and I knew you was going to say that. That's why I just did whatever. Our mission here at Lumumba Speaks is to neither exonerate or vilify, but to challenge conventional wisdom and re-examine what has previously been accepted as fact. So before we start, I want to come out and, of course, state that I made a mistake. I made a statement that was fundamentally false on our previous broadcast.
What was
and
that?
That claim was that Thea Kwame Nkrumah's wife was not the daughter of former Egyptian President Gamal Nasser, right? Okay. I misread some information. She likened him to a father figure. She felt that Nasser was an anti-colonial hero. And then, of course, as a result, she actually connected that with Nkrumah, but she was not his actual daughter, right? He was considered father of the nation, of course, right? But that wasn't his actual daughter. And she was the daughter of a civil servant. So that's something I need to clear up because I misspoke on that live. And of course, we don't allow fundamentally false information on my channel. So I have to also show up and state when I made a statement that was not fact.
Now, Sarah was assassinated, right? Is that true?
I would have to go back and look. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. But we do know that the American government took umbrage with his administration, particularly because of his Pan-Africanist ethos.
Okay.
Yes, so that is something to consider. So the question, the reason why I came up with this live is, are you a Pan-Africanist? There were some people in the comments, some people even DM me, stating that they felt that you were not a Pan-Africanist, right? Okay. There were some who made the argument, and this is something that I was not aware of when they brought it to my attention. But so I'm going to give you the platform to speak to this. That you have in the past vacillated between being a Pan-Africanist and supporting ADOS FBA.
Okay.
What do you say to that?
Let's define Pan-Africanism first of all.
Okay.
Give me the short definition.
Well, you claimed that you were a Pan-Africanist. I'm quite sure you could do so yourself.
I want the best for people of African descent all over this planet.
Yes. Yeah. So Pan-Africanism is the advocacy for the social, political, and economic empowerment of African people globally.
Okay.
As well as independence from foreign domination, both political, social, and of course economic.
And that's what I support.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm a Pan-African.
Okay. So with that being said, some people argue, and I would agree with this claim that an individual made, that you were being coy about Pan-Africanism, right? When you asked, was there a handbook or a manual?
No,
so the question was.
And the reason why I asked that is because if you gather 20 different people,
Mm-hmm.
who ask for their definition of Pan-Africanism, there's a chance that they'll give this are close to the same definition that you've given.
Mm-hmm.
But then if one Black person says they're Republican, then one of the Pan-Africans say, no, you're not a Pan-African, right?
Well, who made that claim? Because I'm
just saying.
Oh, you just using that as an example.
I'm just saying. I've heard this before.
Oh, okay.
Right. If a Pan-African says that he's a capitalist, then of course they'll say that you're not a Pan-African.
That may be someone who's socialist in nature.
Right. So that's the.
I mean, yeah, because I think one time when
that's the point. That's the reason. That's the point I'm trying to make. It's
right.
It's people try to put Pan-Africanism in a box, and that's why I keep asking, where's the handbook? Like, where is it?
Right.
Because to me, your definition is the definition of Pan-Africanism. That's what I want. I fully support that.
Right, and there are core tenets with that definition, with that ideology, right? So, and the reason why I think this is important, because I would argue that one of the contemporary struggles that Pan-Africanism faces is there's a push for a push of misinformation, right? There's a treasure trove of misinformation about Pan-Africanism, or individuals who fancy themselves as Pan-Africanists but don't actually know what Pan-Africanism is. So I know on my channel, I had a conversation with a brother, but goes by Afro Elite, right? Nice brother from Chicago, but he had claimed to have previously been a Pan-Africanist before he turned towards FBA ADOS. I think he was FBA, but that's Tariq Nasheed's thing.
Okay.
But when I asked him, okay, what Pan-Africanist organization were you part of? Can you give me some background on the history of Pan-Africanism, some of the core tenets of Pan-Africanism? He knew nothing. So it would make it hard. That would be similar to having a conversation with someone who professes to be a Christian but doesn't know one thing about Christianity.
Right. So when it comes to the organization part, like, what credible Pan-African organizations are out there? Because the UNIA, I remember one day I called the headquarters of Philadelphia. The line was disconnected.
Okay.
So
well, we know the UNIA has been has regressed significantly since Garvey was in prison and later deported, right? So and so, but I mean, there are some. I'm part of one in Cincinnati, but I'm part of. I was formerly part of one in Dayton, right? There's even the International Black Freedom Alliance, right? So there are Pan-Africanist organizations out there. But one of the things we have to understand is that these organizations, or most Black political organizations outside of the civil rights movement, aren't going to be given the type of visibility to where the majority of Black people would be aware of them, right? So that's just the reality.
Okay.
So you kind of have to be in the know, out doing the work, so on and so forth.
You see, highlight Westside Mike's comment real quick.
Okay.
He makes a great point.
Okay. Westside Mike. There needs to be a set definition due to people picking and choosing if you are one. If you have other ideologies that don't necessarily combat Pan-Africanism, but doesn't 100% align with it. So Westside Mike, I'm quite sure after we finish, we will allow you to come in. And I know Westside Mike. We know each other personally, right? He even knew my son before he knew me. So yeah, we're definitely going to have a great conversation. Brother Jabril says exactly, Brother Lumumba. I don't know what you're agreeing with, but I appreciate you agreeing with me, right? So yes, we're going to continue. So that's one issue. So it's one thing to agree with the idea or the ideology or the definition. It's another to actually follow the core tenets. So someone might say, yeah, I agree with Jesus Christ who died for my sins, or but do you follow the tenets of Christianity? Right. So those are two separate things that we need to be cognizant of and aware of.
So what are the core tenets?
Yes. So when we went over this before, but one of the core tenets, of course, is advocating, and this is particularly in terms of when Pan-Africanism came into being, was advocating for and doing whatever you could to liberate the African continent from foreign, of course, domination. So that was one aspect. The second was, of course, this was crystallized during the time of Marcus Garvey, race first.
Okay.
Right. This is something that we even find, we do find in other racial and ethnic groups, right? They practice this concept of race first, right? A concept of Afrocentrism, Black political and economic power, right? Self-defense typically is a core tenet of Pan-Africanism. And of course, there's a frowning upon, this is actually considered a sin in Pan-African circles. This goes all the way back to the first written Black nationalist or Pan-Africanist manifesto written in 1829 by not Henry Sylvester Williams, David Walker. And David Walker's appeal is what? Advocated not being supportive of what interracial relations and or miscegenation.
Okay.
Right. So these are core tenets of the ideology.
Okay. So can you be
real quick? And last is that what is done for African people must be done by African people. So that advocacy for self-determination, not depending on the largesse of others.
Okay. So with the tenet you just gave, can you be a Pan-African and work a corporate job in corporate America?
Yes. Now the question would come is, does the policies of that company harm African people? So I would give an example. Some people may know this. I know Westside Mike does. I know Brother Jabril does, but maybe some of the followers don't. I was in the military.
Can you be a Pan-African and serve in the United States military?
So I'm gonna answer the question. And when I became politically mature, politically enlightened, I realized that I was a hypocrite. I realized that I was part of an organization. I was a mercenary in Wall Street's army, and that my job was to deny people, particularly people of color, the very rights and freedoms that we advocate for having here in America. So when my contract ended, you just can't be a deserter. They might throw your ass in the brig, right? But when my contract ended, that came up, they offered me $25,000 to re-enlist. I said, take your money and go to hell. Because I realized, based on becoming politically mature, this is something that Pan-Africanism advocates, that being in the military was in contradiction to my professed values as a Pan-Africanist.
Okay. But
when I joined the military, of course, I think you would know, I was not, well, most people when they join the military, they are not politically mature, right? Or I would argue if you are politically mature, you may not join the military unless you're a white nationalist.
Okay, so say you join the military. Say you are honorarily discharged, right? And you're still collecting a check from the military, but you claim to be a Pan-Africanist now. Is that permissible?
Well, I wouldn't have an issue with that, and I'm gonna tell you why. On most jobs, when you retire, right, or you get hurt on the job, you receive some type of financial settlement. Okay, that's the reality. So you're being paid for your labor. Right, a good friend of mine, he's a Pan-Africanist. He was able to get, I think, 70% service connected disability. So he receives about $2,500 every month. Okay. Right. So I don't have an issue with someone being paid for their labor. Now you would hope that a person isn't being paid for engaging in behaviors that destabilize Black communities wherever we are in the world, African communities wherever we are in the world.
But the money that is paying for the labor is coming from destabilizing communities, sometimes Black, all over the world. So
yes, and that's that's why I got out the service. Okay, that's why I got out. That's why I did not re-enlist when my contract was up. Okay. Right.
What so as far as the ADOS part, right?
Yes,
I agree that there is a debt owed to what would be called American descendants of slavery or foundational Black America. I don't know what they consider. I don't know what
we can just say African Americans.
We say African Americans. That's it. That's all.
Okay. And why do you believe that there's a debt that is owed?
Because of the like you said, the labor that was put into the foundation of this country. So I agree with that.
Oh, wait. Oh, so you're saying that there's a debt owed to Black people in America by America?
Correct.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're talking about reparations. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I agree with that. Now, is it a priority of mine? No.
Right.
If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't.
Right.
Now, all the other anti-African, anti-Black rhetoric, I don't agree with.
And when you buy rhetoric, what are you referring to?
The like I don't have to remind Black immigrants that we built this country. If it wasn't for us, y'all wouldn't be able to get here, be able to immigrate here, or the term tether and
right.
Let's see here, you're eating off our plate, stuff like that. I don't agree with that.
Well,
I've had my moments, but
because somebody sent me a video where they were stating that you made some comments that were close, right, insinuating those very things.
Well, I would say that this is where I stand when it comes to the immigration issue, specifically with Black immigrants. Come to America, develop the skills, and this comes from Booker T. Washington. And I read this book.
Out from slavery?
No. Making of a Pan-African by Tyree Wright. Great book on Booker T. Washington. So what Booker T. Washington would do, when him and George Washington Carver, when they established Tuskegee, he will bring in African immigrants, right, on the condition that they will come, they will develop their skills, and they will go back and develop their countries.
Right.
So that's what I agree with. But if they decide to come over, naturalize, get citizenship, they have as much right to this country as I do, except for I don't think they can run for president.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't.
Going here. Yeah.
Right. And then I'm not going to remind them, every 10 minutes that, hey, we built this country, it was for us. Y'all can't come here. You won't be able to come here. But I really believe come, develop the skills, develop Africa. That's where I stand.
Okay. So, and another thing that this once again was brought to my attention was that you made the claim that Pan-Africanism was something that was, I dare say, created by African Americans, and then of course it's something that hasn't been reciprocated.
I would say Pan-Africanism is a concept that came out of the West because of our experience with coming up under white supremacy. So we had no choice but to unite as Black. Versus in Africa, it's more tribal. Let's just be honest.
Well, but I will say we do find Pan-Africanist movements on the continent. We can look at the West African Pilot newspaper, anti-colonial newspaper that of course was the collaboration between Nnamdi Azikiwe and Kwame Nkrumah.
Right, and
so we find Pan-Africanist movements even on the continent.
But they came to it. But both of those, Kwame Nkrumah and Nnamdi Azikiwe were both educated here in America.
Yes, they were. Yes,
where did that? So I'm pretty sure when they came over, that's where they developed those Pan-African concepts. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
So again, it's an idea or a concept that's birthed in the West.
And did you know who coined the term?
If not Martin Delaney, no. It was hold on. The brother that went to Sierra Leone. What's his name? Went to Sierra Leone. Come on. Hold on.
Blyden?
Blight. It was Thomas Blight.
He didn't coin the term, but he is considered one of the fathers. He's considered one of the fathers of Pan-Africanism, but he did not coin the term. But it was a West Indian, Henry Sylvester Williams from Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, but still from the West.
Yes, and you can make the argument that Trinidad and Tobago has created more notable Pan-Africanists per capita than any other country in the Western Hemisphere.
We could agree or disagree now per capita, but as far as the roots are the foundation of Pan-Africanism, I'm going to have to say America, because Garvey came here. No. Garvey came here. Hold on. Garvey came here. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Tommy Sankara, they all came here. Not Tommy Sankara, but Kwame Nkrumah. They all came here.
He visited the United States.
Well, he visited, but But I would definitely have to say the foundation of it is definitely America.
No, and I'm gonna tell you why.
Why?
The term was coined by Henry Sylvester Williams in the 1890s. However, most scholars, and I have a assortment of literature on Pan-Africanism over here. My master's thesis was even on Pan-Africanism, attribute the rise of this concept to Pan-Africanism due to the success of the Haitian Revolution.
I won't. You know what? I won't disagree with you on that.
Right, and like I said, I've read the existing literature.
Yeah, but did Dessalines consider himself a Pan-African?
Well, the behaviors they engaged in were Pan-Africans because the focus and goal was to then, since we liberate ourselves, be able to then develop the type of military capacity to liberate other Black people in the Western world.
Yeah, but they consider themselves Pan-African.
Well, the term hadn't been coined yet. So this is and actually there's a book I have. Golly, hold on one second. It's a book on classical. Yeah, it's right behind me. My bad. So classical Black nationalism, right? Classical Black nationalism from the American Revolution and Marcus Garvey. But in this book, in the introduction, they talk about the
Whoa! You said the American Revolution.
Yes. Hold on. Okay, I'm about to make my point. In the introduction, they talk about the proto-Pan-Africanist era. Right, so they talk about before the term was coined, they cover a number of Pan-Africanist movements that took place in the Western Hemisphere prior to the term being coined, and they go all the way back to the Maroon societies in Brazil. Right, so that's what I said. When you talk about the existing literature, I've read the existing literature, and there's a long history of Pan-Africanism prior to the United States, of African people banding together. But most scholars, not all, but most scholars point to the Haitian Revolution as the crystallizing moment of where the concept of Pan-Africanism became a Western phenomenon amongst African people fighting against the slaveocracy in the death and decadence of the Western diaspora.
I said, well, then I would have to somewhat disagree because you mentioned the American Revolution.
Yeah, this is the title of the book.
Right. Okay. So in that book, did they mention any Pan-African movements before the actual American Revolution?
Yes, that's what I just said. I said the whole introduction does that. Going all the way back to the 15th century, I believe, yes, in the Maroon societies that developed in Brazil.
Okay. But not coining the term, but just the ideology.
Yes, the ideology, yes.
But I would still have to say the foundation of it is basically American.
No, it's not.
And
hold on real quick. I have a whole section of literature. I'm telling you, that's not the case. All of these books here on the history of Pan-Africanism, that is not that is something, I ain't trying to be, didactic in nature, but that is just something that is fundamentally false. If you've read the existing literature on the history of Pan-Africanism, there's no way you could come to that conclusion at all whatsoever.
I'm going to tell you why. So at the end of the American Revolution, all right, you had the free Blacks that went to Nova Scotia that followed the side of the British.
Yeah, right.
From there, they went to Sierra Leone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I mentioned Blyden.
Yes.
So,
and Blyden was from the West Indies. And he's considered one of the two fathers of Pan-Africanism. I consider Blyden and Henry Sylvester Williams. They're both West Indians. And you ask any scholar on Pan-Africanism, they will tell you this. The two fathers, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2,
okay,
of Pan-Africanism are considered the West Indian Henry Sylvester Williams, who was a Trinidadian barrister. He was a lawyer. And William Edward Blyden.
Right. So
that debunks your whole narrative right there that Pan-Africanism is American.
No. Well, what I was saying, what I was getting to, I was saying the root of it would be Sierra Leone. I would say the root of it more Sierra Leone than the foundation America.
No, the roots of Pan-Africanism developed here in the Western world. That's a reality.
Okay.
No way around it.
Somebody said y'all passed up David Walker like it was nothing.
Well, yeah, David Walker's appeal. Yes, I stated this at the beginning of this live earlier, and then of course on the previous live that we had, that David Walker wrote the first written Pan-Africanist or Black nationalist manifesto, known as David Walker's Appeal. In fact, every semester I require my students to, part of the assignment on the syllabus, they have to read his appeal. They have to read it in its entirety. In fact, I have it right up here behind me, actually. Yep, here we go. David Walker's appeal to the colored citizens of the world, but in particular, very especially to those of the United States of America. So once again, I can back my stuff up. Like I got it right here. And I've had it since 2006.
I would have to inject also Thomas Peters.
Thomas Peters. Go right ahead.
Because again, when you're dealing with at the end of the American Revolution, all right, in the founding of Sierra Leone, Freetown, all right, for the free slaves that went to Nova Scotia, then the poor blacks that came from England to Freetown. I would have to say that before the West Indies.
Well, once again, that's not possible because the Pan-Africanism that was taking place in Sierra Leone was brought to Sierra Leone by West Indians.
Well, Thomas Peters was considered, I mean, he was a Nigerian, but he was a slave in America.
Right.
So
once again, if you have an issue, you need to take that up with historians in the existing literature. That once again, and this is consistent across, the existing literature, is that what? I said you have to you need to start making shorts about the books you have in your library, like how do you do your daily historical facts? Okay, I would do that, brother. I appreciate you mentioning that, Westside Mike. But once again, this is consistent. This is the consensus in academia amongst Pan-Africanists that what? The fathers of Pan-Africanism are the West Indian barrister Henry Sylvester Williams and Edward Blyden. So I mean, there's just no way around this.
Let me read the super chat. Dynast, the foundation was an American, but Black America gave it its biggest platform due to access to media and academic institutions here. See, that's what I meant. So here we go. I would say the biggest influence came out of America.
We might have to agree to disagree because you're moving the goalposts now. Like you're moving the goalposts like the people did in the Peach Bowl against Ohio State when we lost.
Y'all missed that field goal.
They moved the goalpost on us, right? So that was he says the idea of Liberia was focused around Pan-Africanism. See, I would push back there about Liberia because Liberia was a colony and everything but fact, right? The Liberian flag was based on the American flag. The capital of Liberia was named Monrovia after the U.S. President James Monroe. In fact, the basis of Liberia was based on the American Colonization Society. So Liberia was the creation of the American government want to what? Have freed African Americans leave America because having Black people in America who were free undermined the institution of slavery when you're being told your whole life that you're a slave because of your race. So I would push back against the concept and idea that Liberia was based on Pan-Africanism. Westside Mike says Ohio State fans got more excuses to call he has books.
Facts.
You know what? We ain't gonna be cool no more, brother. We ain't gonna be cool anymore.
Right. Nah, he's right. He's definitely right.
Oh man. Okay. All right. You know what? We ain't gonna have any excuses in 2024 when we go 16-0 and raise that championship trophy. Let's get it. Okay. So you also mentioned on a past live that you did. This is probably years ago that not Henry Sylvester Williams, but Booker T. Washington. Yes. So it was responsible for making people aware of the atrocities of the genocide that was taking place in the Congo.
The Congo, or was it
the Congo? But it was actually George Washington Williams.
Nah, you gotta play that. You gotta play that clip. I don't remember saying that I know Booker T. Washington was very heavily involved in Togo.
Okay, give me 1 second. See if I can bring this up. Let's go here and let's see if I can find it. All right. And I'll try to find it, but
I'm not saying I didn't say that, but that was probably years ago.
Okay, yeah, it was years ago. But then you also stated that if it wasn't for Roots, nobody would know about the Gambia.
No. But at the same time, no. Booker T. Washington, he was very influential in speaking out against what was going on in the Congo. He was.
But it was George Washington Williams.
But Booker T. Washington was
the progenitor of that.
But Booker T. Washington was as well.
Well, once again, George Washington, Booker T. Washington passed in 1915.
Okay.
right? And the world didn't become aware of these things until later when George Washington Williams started doing his report.
I disagree with that. Booker T. Washington was very, very, unless you could prove me wrong that he wasn't. Okay. Hold on. You like to pull up books. Hold on, let me grab a book. Hold on 1 second.
Okay. We're going to pause for the calls, family. I'm going to pause for the calls.
So this book right here, Booker T. Washington, The Making of a Pan-Africanist by Tyree Wright. She goes into detail, Dr. PhD. She goes into detail in regards to Booker T. Washington's his activism when it comes to the atrocities of the Congo right here.
Okay, could you turn to the page? All you gotta do is go to the index, and it should have Congo in there in the index, and then you could just turn to the page.
There is no, hold on.
Because in scholarly writing, you have to have an index.
Hold on.
When you write a book.
This is the index right here. So there's not one that says specifically Congo.
That says contents, not index. That's at University of Georgia education. That's okay.
Contents, index, whatever.
And index is at the end of a book. We know this. Yes. Like this. Right. It says index at the end. So
hold on 1 second. You mean the references?
Index. No, index.
It says references.
No, I'm talking about index. That means that you could go, like, if it says Congo, you would be able to go to the actual page where it mentions him advocating and making the world aware of.
Well, okay, so number one, so Tyree Wright is PhD. She's a doctor.
I understand that.
PhD, and it says references at the back.
Right, and the references is where you get your information, but the index is actually shows you, provides detailed accounts of where, on what page particular issue is mentioned. So, for example,
it's not at the back of this book.
Oh, so she doesn't have an index. Okay, cool.
No.
All right, no problem. All right, we can move right on. We can move right ahead. No problem there.
But in this book, she breaks it down. Go support her book.
Okay. Okay. No problem. So one of the things you mentioned was that, of course, Roots put the Gambia on the map.
I agree. I stand by that.
And I would think that's rather problematic because anyone who has knowledge of geography would know what the Gambia is.
Made Gambia popular. That
right. I
that
don't
makes
know
sense.
if it was made popular.
It was made popular.
Anyone who is geographically astute would know where the Gambia is.
Well, what I'm saying is, the average person isn't geographically astute. I still have people asking me when I say I'm going to Senegal. They want to know if that's East or West Africa or where in Africa that is.
So that means those are the people. That's the circle you want to read. Okay.
So again, the average person, Black person in America, has no clue about the geography of the planet or Africa specifically. That's just the reality of it. And that's the reality of it. That's
sad. That's sad.
But that's just fact.
And so again, that putting on the map did not lead to any tangible benefit.
I'll say that again.
The putting on the map didn't lead to any tangible.
Making it popular, yes. Making it popular.
Well, it didn't lead to any tangible benefit. Tangible benefit.
Okay, for who?
For people in the Gambia.
I mean, it put the family on the map. Kunta Kite's family, who's still there today. It brought resources to the country,
such as
development of the actual Kunta Kite Island and the surrounding areas. It brought tourism to Gambia. So
there wasn't tourism before?
Not on the level. Here we go. I'll give you a prime example. Dirty December in Ghana. So the amount of money during December that was injected into Ghana because of Dirty December, whatever you call it, I want to say it was at its highest 2 years ago before any other time. So it did,
Ghana?
Yeah.
I didn't say Ghana. We're talking about the Gambia.
Right, but I'm saying it brought tourism.
That's that moving the goalposts.
No,
again,
I'm not moving
like
the goalposts.
That's the Peach Bowl all over again. That's the Peach Bowl. Peach Bowl.
It brought
they moved the goalpost on us in the Peach Bowl.
It brought tourism, injected tourism revenue into the Gambia, which created opportunities.
Okay, but you just used Ghana as your example.
I was using it as an example for you to get an idea of what I meant.
Right. But we want to be specific. But that's quite all right. You also mentioned, of course, Pan-Africanism doesn't provide tangibles. And you made some claims that Booker T. Washington, Martin Delany did not receive support from Africans. They particularly Martin Delany was not welcomed by people in Africa when he traveled to, I believe, Nigeria.
I don't want to say he wasn't welcome. He was welcome, but he didn't agree with what was going on the continent in regards to slavery.
Right. Well, of course he wouldn't. He didn't agree with what was going on in America. Right. But this is something you said on a previous live titled "Confessions of a Pan-Africanism of a Pan-Africanist. Pan-Africanism hasn't created anything tangible." So that this was brought to my attention, and this is why I'm, of course, raising these questions. But also, when we talk about tangibles, Malcolm X, when he had an audience with the Organization of African Unity, now known as the African Union, he received the support of 5 African nation states to actually go to the United Nations and put charges against the United States government for human rights violations against African Americans, and that was. Most argue that was the reason why he was killed in such quick fashion, is because he had the backing of actual African nations.
Okay, you moving the goalposts. I never mentioned Malcolm X.
No, I never said you did. I never said you did. I never said you did. But that would be an example of, because most scholars would argue that one of the reasons why Pan-Africanism has typically failed to promise so much, it's promised so much but delivered so little, is because the West has a fear of Pan-Africanism.
Oh, well, here we go. Let me read this. Hold on. Let me read this. Sorry.
No, it's quite all right. Quite all right.
Here we go. Let me go back. I found it. Here we go. The Congo Free State. This is on page 68.
Okay.
Charlie Wright's book.
Okay.
The United States was the first Western nation to acknowledge the sole ownership of a territory in Africa by an individual. The individual was King Leopold of Belgium, and the territory located in the heart of Africa became known as the Congo Free State. Mm-hmm. By 1904, Washington began publicizing his views on the state of affairs in the Congo Free State. He condemned and propagandized against the cruelties practiced under King Leopold through a series of articles exposing the atrocities to the world. In his article, Cruelty in the Congo Country, Washington made a humanist appeal to readers and argued that the events taking place in the Congo were worse than the atrocities committed under American enslavement. According to Washington, nothing was comparable to the barbarous conditions existing today in the Congo Free State. In addition to publishing a series of articles, Washington aligned himself with Mark Twain and others who lobbied on the issue. Later, he became vice president of the Congo Reform Association in the U.S., which worked to address the conditions and political issues in the Congo. You want me to continue?
No. I'll show you Black Power. You substantiated your point. Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's all. Thank you. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. Okay. And you did that on page 68. And what's the title of the book again? Once again, for everybody.
Booker T. Washington, The Making of a Pan-Africanist. This is by Tyreen Wright.
Can you put that in the comments so we can put that on the screen? Absolutely. So Booker T. Washington's Pan-Africanism. Most people are unaware he even took issue with what was going on in Haiti, right? And of course, he ended up passing in 1915, but he even took issue with what was going on in Haiti and wanted to go to Haiti and seek to improve some of the conditions in Haiti that the people were facing. But he passed away in the same year that American occupation of Haiti began, which of course was 1915. So absolutely 100%. But yeah, so as I mentioned with Malcolm X, he received the support of those 5 African nation states. I can name 4 off the top of my head: Ghana, Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania. But as we know, he was assassinated. Most scholars would argue that the reason why there's been such a struggle, the Pan-African struggle has failed to actually fulfill its promises, is because there's such a vociferous attack by the West against Pan-Africanism, because there's a belief that this is a major threat to the global North's hegemony of what African people, what some people call the global South. So just something to be cognizant of. Definitely. But Malcolm X did receive the support of 5 African nation states to support him in going to the United Nations and filing charges against the United States for crimes against humanity.
Okay.
We can even look at
whatever came from that. I know he said he got assassinated.
Yeah, he was assassinated.
But did the countries follow through, or what happened?
Well, so what ended up taking place was the organization, the Organization of African American Unity, which was modeled and based on the Organization of African Unity, was supposed to lead the charge, but they end up disintegrating because Malcolm passed away. Yeah.
Okay.
So then there end up being a splintering between not only his half sister, but also Black people who were activists, who were academics, and then of course brothers and sisters who were in the community. And Carl Evans talks about this in his book, The Rise and Fall of Elijah Muhammad, what ended up happening and why the Organization of African American Unity ended up dissolving. Right. And so as a result, that it never moved forward.
Somebody in chat asking what African states or countries?
Yes, Ghana, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Kenya. Those are the 4 I can recall off the top of my head.
Okay.
And I wrote when I was in undergrad, I did a research project on African American repatriation to Africa. And those are some of the same nation states that were actually allowed Black people to repatriate. Ghana, of course, it was under the Nkrumah administration. Hold on one second.
Uh-huh.
Sorry about that. So, yeah, so these are countries that did allow African Americans to repatriate, most notably in Tanzania. There was a large segment of African Americans that went to Tanzania, most led by Pete O'Neill, who was a Black Panther in Kansas City. You're familiar with Pete O'Neill, Panther in Africa.
I saw that movie, the documentary.
Yes. In Ethiopia, Haile Selassie set aside land.
For the Rastas.
Yeah, for the Rastas. In Ghana, there's still a large African American community there. Then, of course, Kenya as well. Even Thomas Sankara in the 80s, allowed his administration. Matter of fact, when he came to America, he was denied a state visit by the then president, Ronald Wilson Reagan, because of his Pan-Africanist ideology and ethos. And so when he the next day he was scheduled to speak at the United Nations. The night before, he went to Harriet Tubman Elementary School in Harlem, and I actually posted this speech on my channel. So you could go on my channel, Lumumba Speaks. Make sure you hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and share. He stated at that speech, he said, our fight is the same. Our fight against neocolonialism is the same as the fight that you all are facing here in America. And he stated, for any African Americans that want to repatriate, you could come to Burkina Faso. He also stated that for the African revolutionary, his White House is in Black Harlem. And then his issue, he just wasn't talking Black to Black people. He went the next day to the United Nations and gave the same exact speech. And then we know what happened to Thomas Sankara, right? So we see that there's a push by the West to if individuals are actually Pan-African, actually engaging in tangible initiatives to benefit not only Black people on the continent, but African people in the West. We got to get them out of Dodge.
So I like to do this on your show. The statement that I made that Pan-Africanism has been one-sided, I like to retract that statement and apologize.
So you stated that you like to retract that statement.
Exactly, and formally apologize that it's one-sided. So I'm going to put that out there.
Okay, and you know what? I accept that because, like I stated, when I came on the show, I put out that I made a statement that was false.
Right. So that was a false statement.
Yeah. So this is what we really want to do, brothers and sisters. We want to learn and grow together. Right. This is not to be antagonistic, as I stated. Dynast. I lost the bet and I paid him the money within 5 seconds. I didn't get ghost on him. He didn't have to hit me up. Hey, what's going on, Lumumba? He didn't have to call me out on YouTube. I didn't keep my word. And 5 seconds after Ohio State lost the game because they moved the goalpost in the Peach Bowl, right? I paid them the money. I didn't complain that somebody moved the goalpost. I said, well, hey, it happens, right? We was kicking their derriere for 3/4 of the game, but hey, It happens. So last but not least, you made the claim that Garvey was run out of Jamaica because there wasn't a support for Pan-Africanism in Jamaica, and that he had to come to America and get it cracking with FBA, as you stated in the video. Could you speak to that?
Right. I mean, so that's what happened. So it wasn't widely accepted in Jamaica. That's why he had to come to America. And that's why I say America, for the most part, was the center of Pan-Africanism.
So that's patently false. Pan-Africanism was cracking in Jamaica. Garvey was a student of Joseph Robert Love, who was engaging in Pan-Africanist organizing in Jamaica. Second, Garvey went to Jamaica because he wanted to meet with Booker T. Washington, because he wanted to establish an industrial school in Jamaica. The reason why he stayed in New York City, and this is even in the writings of his wife, in A Negro with a Hat by Colin Grant, and some of the writings of course, Tony Martin, who was the preeminent Garvey scholar worldwide, was he stayed there because they were having issues with the UNA chapter in New York City, and they asked him to stay and become president. He states this himself, that that's the reason why he stayed. And if you know something, unfortunately, at that time, there were ethnic tensions between West Indians and African Americans. And so when he initially started organizing the UNIA, he was initially organizing the UNIA amongst working class West Indians. It was later that he was able to connect with African Americans, so on and so forth. Hubert Harrison would be a good example. Because Garvey, for example, with the red, black, and green flag, Garvey wanted to have the flag, I think, black, tan, and beige. And Hubert Harrison was the one that said, no, we need to have a red, black, and green, if I'm remembering the story correctly.
So you're saying there were no tensions with Garvey and anybody that were probably against Pan-Africanism in Jamaica?
No, what I'm saying is that he initially, in your video, you said that he had to go to America and get it popping with FBA in New York City. This is what you stated, direct quote.
Okay.
Right? This was direct quote 4 years ago. And what I'm saying is that is ahistorical. He first began organizing amongst working class West Indians.
Okay.
Right. And the reason why he stayed was because they were having issues with the UNA chapter in New York City, and they asked him to stay and become president of the chapter. He stated this himself in his own writings, that he had planned to go back to Jamaica all along until they asked him to stay and become president of the chapter in New York City. So unless you're going to say Garvey was lying himself, unless you're going to say that Tony Martin and Colin Grant and all of these Garvey scholars don't know what they're talking about.
I can't say that.
Yeah, because I've read the literature. So what I'm saying is that's one of the issues with Pan-Africanism, why people are making claims that are ahistorical. It hurts the movement. It hurts our credibility.
Okay, I was wrong.
Yeah, it's just the reality of the situation, right? And we know that it was a contingent of African Americans that.
Here we go. Hold on. What books and pages? What page number? What book?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, give me 1 second.
What book you page? Thank you, Westside Bike. What book your page number?
Give me 1 second.
Because from my understanding, Pan-Africanism wasn't received in Jamaica the way it was.
No, but it was. Garvey's even quoted stating that if Robert, what's his name again, Joseph Robert Love was in good health, that they would have been attacking him and not Garvey, right? So this is just something to consider. We even know that when the UNIA was at its height, Cuba had the second most Garvey chapters of any country in the Western Hemisphere. So that shows the fact that Pan-Africanism wasn't one-sided and was simply being led by African Americans, right? And who is it? Dr. Amos Wilson talks about this in his book, Falsification of African Consciousness. And I have that right here, and I could probably pull up the page number and picture and everything. Yeah, sure can, right here. This is on page, golly, this is in the beginning, but before even page numbers start, he says a short list of Pan-African predecessors and descendants of the UNIA, while he goes all the way down. Garvey here in the middle talks about the Negro world writers. I mean, so he really centers Marcus Garvey, and most scholars center Marcus Garvey as the central force in the bridge between classical Black nationalism or Pan-Africanism and modern Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism. But as you can see here on the map, you probably can't see all the dots. But yeah, Cuba had 52, the small island of Cuba, they had 52 Garvey chapters. So
somebody said Joseph Robert Love wasn't Jamaican.
No, I never said he was Jamaican. He was from the Bahamas, but he was organizing in Jamaica. He was doing Pan-African organizing in Jamaica. He helped a number of individuals get elected. I mean, he was doing the work, and Garvey was a mentee of him. Right. And so one of the things that we tend to find also when we talk about Pan-Africanism is a number of Pan-Africanist movements where individuals may be of different nationalities, but they're doing the work in a particular nation state. So the Haitian Revolution, Duty Bookman was from Jamaica, right? We talk about the Trinidadian labor leader, Tuba Ura Butler, was born in Grenada. Walter Rodney was a Guyanese scholar, but he was putting in work in Jamaica, right? We could talk about the political party was eventually there. Chad, the nation state Chad to independence from France was founded by a brother who was from Panama. So when we talk about Pan-Africanism, we don't care about the nationality. And these are just some examples I can provide. And so if someone wants to focus on a particular ethnic group, that would even be nationalism. That would be what? That would be really what some would call tribalism. Because nationalism, at least you're saying you care about the Black people in your country. But when we talk about situations like FBA and ADOS, they focus not even on the Black people in their country. They focus just on their own ethnicity. Right? So these are just things to consider. Right? When people make the argument that, this is something that is American-centered, led by African-Americans, that's not the case at all. Right? Pan-African, because if African-Americans were leading Pan-Africanism, then they would have to be engaging in Pan-Africanism with Black people from other countries. So that would undermine that whole argument right there. Because you can't lead Pan-Africanism, which is international in nature, with someone, with someone who's not, who is African-American. You would have to be engaging in that behavior with someone who's not African-American. It would have to be reciprocated, meaning they are agreeing with your ideology and the work that you're doing. So this is why it's important that we're coming with facts, not innuendo, not conjecture, right? We're not prisoners of the moment, but factual information, right? This is why this is important. Yes, and like I said, my master's thesis is titled what? But let me bring this up here, because I believe to be a great Pan-Africanist, you need to also be a great critiquer. You have to critique it as well to be. So let me share a screen here, and Lord have mercy, where we at? Give me 1 second, family. I gotta find this. Okay, here we go. On my website, Lumumba Speaks, right? LumumbaSpeaks.com. As you can see here, my thesis here is Pan-Africanism. Is Pan-Africanism dead? So I provide a critique of Pan-Africanism, and I go on to state that since the 1960s, Pan-Africanism has steadily lost its currency amongst leaders and citizens in the African continent and throughout the African diaspora. During the past 50 years, Pan-Africanism has suffered a series of seemingly insurmountable setbacks, including the assassinations of prominent activists and statesmen such as Patrice Lumumba, Steve Biko, and Malcolm X, and Thomas Sankara, to name a few. Furthermore, Pan-Africanism's flagship organization, the African Union, has had its fair share of challenges and criticisms, leading its detractors to call it a toothless bulldog. Additionally, the growing disillusionment amongst Africans in the continent and throughout the diaspora towards an ideology that has promised so much but delivered so little has caused Pan-Africanism to be seen as an antiquated model of resistance to global white hegemony. This stance has caused many to question the efficacy of the philosophies and opinions of Marcus Garvey in the age of globalization, in which the forms of oppression African people face have evolved through sophisticated social structures that produce contradictory forms of consciousness. Moreover, the pessimistic undercurrent towards Pan-Africanism that permeates the African world leads one to ask the question, is Pan-Africanism dead? So once again, family, if you go to LumumbaSpeaks.com, and go to the publications tab, you can read my thesis for free. Okay? You can read my thesis for free, where I make an argument regarding why Pan-Africanism, questioning is Pan-Africanism dead? But when we pose that question, when we provide critiques, we need to make sure they're rooted in facts rather than innuendo feelings, conjecture, and of course being prisoners of the moment.
Here we go. Professor Davis Professor Davis, you're watching, but you need to call in.
Mm-hmm.
So Professor Davis just said this to me. What one overlooks is the role of the Black church in the formation of Pan-Africanism. Garvey traveled to 38 states to raise funds for the emerging UNIA. There would hardly be a UNIA without the African American church.
Well, Garvey created their own church in the UNIA, right? I can't recall the name of it off rip, but he created their own church. And so, of course, there were a number of African. Of course, if he's in America and the majority of Black people in America are African Americans, he's going to be working with them, right? That's just the reality. For example, what's the sister that became the first self-made millionaire?
Madam
C.J. Walker.
No, there was another sister before that.
Okay, well, Madam C.J. Walker's the one.
Oh, she's right.
Right, she donated a lot of money to Garvey to help start the Negro World newspaper, right? However, when she wanted to advertise her products in the newspaper, right, the story goes that Garvey said, we can't do that. She said, why? He said, because your products make us look more European or less African. This is the story, right? So if you're in America, right, and the majority of people in America are African Americans, in order for your organization to be successful, you're going to have the support of African Americans. That's just a reality.
Right.
For example, when he had his first speaking engagement, because he was doing organizing, but his first speaking engagement, we know it went terribly, right? He fell off the rostrum, fell down on the floor, so on and so forth. But he was given that speaking engagement, that invite at the behest of what? A. Philip Randolph. And Randolph later became one of his most vociferous critics, right? So it was one of the leaders of the Garvey Must Go movement.
So can we make the argument that Black America was the foundation of Pan-Africanism indirectly because of the funding of it?
No, we could say you could make the argument that the African community played a major role in helping support the UNIA, not Pan-Africanism as a whole. Because, and unfortunately, after Garvey was deported, when Garvey, so we know Garvey went to prison for mail fraud, right? He was in the prison in Atlanta where you are. You probably gone past the prison. I'm not going to ask if you've been there before, right? I'm joking, right? I know you don't get in trouble with the law. But when Garvey was, his sentence was commuted and he was deported, of course, he ended up, leaving via a ship in New Orleans. When he arrived in Jamaica, he arrived home to a hero's welcome. Right. So these are just things to consider, but you could make the argument that, the UNIA was successful in America, but we know the UNIA was a global organization. In fact, the Negro World newspaper was written in 3 languages, Spanish, French, and English. And they had a readership, a distribution that from New York City all the way to Sydney, Australia. In fact, if you were caught reading the Negro World newspaper in colonial Africa, you were imprisoned. And we know that the colonial powers fought and worked diligently to prevent Garvey from coming to Africa, right? Because we know they were going to get set up in Liberia, and your boy, W.E.B. Du Bois, right, actually worked with the United States government to prevent Garvey from being able to go to Liberia. And the land that Garvey was going to receive from the Liberian government, because the Liberian government said, yes, we like what you're talking about. When the Liberian government faced pressure from the United States, because they were a colony and everything but name, that land ended up going to a tire and rubber company,
Firestone.
Yeah, Firestone. So, yes, but now what I will argue was one of the reasons why the Negro World newspaper was able to be distributed in Africa was because of African American sailors.
And another reason why he got blocked from Liberia is because he was going to enthrone and crown himself as king of Africa or something. So they were like,
he called himself provisional president of Africa, but that was a perfunctory title. It wasn't something that was legitimate.
Let's take some callers. Is that cool?
Okay? So we're gonna open things up. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. This was a great conversation for about an hour, and we're going to get things popping the good old OHIO, Ohio State way. And make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, family.
Screen? Am I in view?
Yes.
I guess
you are. Yes.
Okay.
Sir.
So you guys talked quite extensively. I want to point three things that I took from your conversation between you two. I personally believe that the period in which Pan-Africanism was of relevancy to West has passed. Pan-Africanism is of no, it has no tangible benefit to West today.
Okay.
For the simple reason that if I were to point out the tangible benefits or the factors that we will get out of being a Pan-Africanist, there isn't that much that people could really give. I believe that what we need today are tangible factors that produce wealth, value, and welfare for our people. So Pan-Africanism has an emotional attachment because of what it was able to achieve in the past. But today, what our people need is value creation. Out of that value, we generate wealth and pass on that wealth to the next generation, and we derive welfare. We live very well out of that. Let me give an example, yeah? If you look at the African continent or the African Dominion countries in which we Black people are either majority or we live, these territories are mostly the ones that are attacked. But if you look at it, the collective West, which for probably the past 80 years, nobody has militarily attacked them, they have NATO to protect their interests. Why is it that we, the ones that are subjected mostly to military attacks, all kinds of things, we do not have a protection force around it? So we need to redefine the things that create value, wealth, and welfare for us. Pan-Africanism is past. It hasn't delivered anything that is of tangible reasons to us today.
So let me provide a retort to that. So I would agree that Pan-Africanism should provide tangibles. I've stated this rather ad nauseum on my channel. But when you talk about economics, right, I would argue that part of and Garvey was what most would argue an economic nationalist. He believed that the way that African people could gain power and freedom from foreign hegemony was through what? Developing wealth, right? That's why he created the Black Star Line to challenge the British White Star Line, right? Exactly. So I would agree with you there, right? And so I would argue that part of Pan-Africanism would be us working together economically, right? Building industry, controlling industry, irrespective of where we are in the world. Right, so that would be one argument I would make there. Secondly, I would argue that there are some who make the argument that Pan-Africanism is an antiquated model of resistance. I would push back against that. What we tend to find historically, even in contemporary manner, is that the Europeans' response to African people's resistance or movements, their response to it has been pan-European, right? We look at Haiti, for example. Another example would be Bermuda, the small island of Bermuda, and almost in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, where they had a Black Power movement or revolution. The United States, Canada, and the UK sought to work to quell that movement, right? So we still see that this is an issue that's taking place. But I would make the argument that economically we should definitely be seeking to work together, because we know, unfortunately, when we look at golly, I'm trying to think of the work of Walter Rodney, his concept of dependency theory, right? When we look at the economic spheres that influence in the world, we find African people at the bottom, right? And so I would argue that that's something that we need to do. I want to read this chat real quick from Kiet. He says, W. Du Bois was Pan-African before Garvey, Booker T. Washington was actually the one who indirectly influenced Garvey with his book Up from Slavery. So I would push back against that. We know Du Bois later became a Pan-Africanist, but in the beginning, when Garvey came to America, Du Bois, if I remember correctly, had created the Niagara movement, which was a assimilationist movement, integrationist movement, and then followed that up with joining the NAACP, which was an integrationist organization, and of course being the founder of the Crisis magazine, which is the literary organ of the NAACP. So something to consider.
One thing that I will add to what I am advocating is that, you know, the factors that Garvey and people in the past, the factors they faced then are not the factors we face today. You know, Pan-Africanism has a passive attitude with it. You know, we need much more active attitudes today to sort out the issues that we have. Most of the issues that we have today is to create wealth and welfare for our people. And we need new definitions to do that. You know, holding on emotionally to the past is really not going to help us. You know, there was also in your conversation, you mentioned about reparations. Yeah? Reparation is one of those stuff that people throw out all the time. You see, there was a reason why the Europeans came to Africa and took away the wealth that we had. They wanted it, they took it away. Nobody is going to give you that wealth back. Other than that, they wouldn't have taken it. You know, the way power is structured around the world today, if you want to get something out of the way things are, you impose it. You never hear African governments or the ones that represent it talking about imposing. You know, it's very simple. Let's impose tariff on all the stuff that we export, and automatically, whatever it is we are demanding, it gets paid back. You know, talking about going to beg others to give you money for something that has happened in the, nobody's going to do that. So we need to redefine what we want, and we need to be active in a way that we get it. But our passive attitude is not helping.
So what do you mean by passive attitude?
For example, this whole reparation discussion is always a discussion about we have to go and ask. They have to give it to us.
Well, so very quickly. Are you talking about African Americans advocating for reparations? From both sides? Probably in the American context, it's going to be a little bit difficult imposing that. But from an African point of view, because we export a lot of products and services to the rest of the world, we can impose that cost on what we sell. And we can also do that on behalf of Africans that are in the US or in the North America. It can be done, and then, you know, their part is rewarded to them. We should stop being passive and start to be active, because the world is active. Europeans, North Americans, they don't go begging for something to be done for them. They just impose it. You guys are from the US. I'm glad you made that point. You talk about imposing. I would agree with that. And brother Philip, you know, you could tap in anytime. Matter of fact, I want you to tap in and be part of the conversation. But part of that is they're able to impose due to what? Power, right? Not just political and economic, but also militarily, right? So we have to understand, you know, part of that is coming from a colonialist, from a imperialist frame of reference, to where they're able to, you know, most people some political scientists define power as the ability to impose a person's, to create someone else's reality and have them accept it as their own, right? So I think that's something that we have to consider when we talk about why is the global north doing that? Because they have the political, military, and economic power to do so. And yes, the military might to do
Mr.
so.
Mr. Lumumba, see, exactly what I'm proposing is what is now being done in the Sahel countries, yeah? So they are trying to get together and militarily they are imposing, a military structure to protect themselves. We should do the same thing. If we were to do that, we would have protected Congo. We would have
I would agree. I would agree. And to do that, it's going to take African people working together, which would be Pan-Africanism.
Those countries, those Sahel countries are poor.
To be able to also talk.
Yeah, those Sahel countries are poor and insignificant. You know what I mean? It's basically just a throwback to the post-colonial era of people like Nkrumah and Sekou Touré and those people, imagining that they can take on the West through some kind of solidarity, socialist South-South solidarity, which was really romantic and impractical back then, just as how BRICS is impractical back today, because these countries don't have the wealth to take on anybody. Maybe they can use their military to suppress their own people, which is what a lot of these third world countries do. But in terms of taking on the West in an adversarial manner, they can't do that. I mean, they'll get picked off very easily, no matter even if they unite, because all these economies are either low income or middle income. You know what I mean? If you compare in the strengths of different countries, I think Pan-Africanism have a socialism problem, and it's the big figureheads like Du Bois, Nkrumah, and Nyerere. They were all advocates of socialism. Du Bois, he was a member of the Communist Party. And today, these ideologies have been discredited. You know what I mean? So that is one factor in Pan-Africanism not being relevant or is not being seen as relevant by the younger generation. Two, Pan-Africanism, I think, have two distinct types. You have one, the intellectual type of Pan-Africanism, and two, you have the head of state type of Pan-Africanism, like AU and stuff. The political type Pan-Africanism is seen by the people as, being too impotent to prevent internecine warfare on the continent. For instance, the DRC, and the AU politicians are seen as corrupt and bureaucratic and generally aloof from the people. So
very quickly, I want to tap into that. A good example of what you're speaking to is the book that was written by the Ghanaian author, The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born. I think that's the title, or Not Yet Arrived, that speaks to, there was this euphoria regarding independence. And then years later, you saw some of the same issues and corruption became an issue. And that speaks to what you're talking about. And that is one of the things that I discussed in my thesis, is Pan-Africanism dead? Go right ahead.
Yeah, because, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts, absolutely. A lot of these African leaders from Nkrumah to Nyerere, almost all of them, they were educated in the West. They were educated in the kind of Fabian socialist or the Marxist political economy, which was popular during the Second World War or right after the Second World War. And they went back to Africa and they implemented all these socialistic programs, and they had predictable results. Anybody on the panel is familiar with George Ayittey?
Well, hold on. So when you talked about socialism, I'm not a socialist. I think it's also important to understand that when African nations, it was quite natural that if someone was being oppressed under a particular economic ideology, and I just dropped the link. I'll drop the link again. I just dropped the link, Mary Shai. I just dropped the link for Brother Phillip. But I could put it in there again. And the link is in the description. So if he wants to get on YouTube, he could just go to the description. He could tap in. But it would be quite natural that if you were being oppressed by an economic system that was capitalistic, that you would turn to an alternative economic system. The other issue I think we need to consider is that, and oftentimes when we could talk about, particularly in Ghana and in Tanzania, when they were kind of running a quasi-social type of economic system, one of the reasons why those economic systems did not work was because of actually embargoes, trade embargoes imposed by Western nations. And then in the case of Ghana, you had the U.S.-backed coup that removed Nkrumah from office, and at the time, Ghana had one of the leading, if not the leading, economy in West Africa. And as a result, they brought in some puppets, and they were able to put Ghana into debt by having them accept, IMF and World Bank loans, and then they defaulted on the loans. Structural adjustment came into play. So I think there's some context that we need to add to that as well.
All right, so number one, it is not natural to blame capitalism for the problems in Africa.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that
I know.
That was the logic back then.
Yeah, yes, I know that. Hold on, I know that was the thinking back then, but I'm saying it's not natural. That was as a result of the anti-capitalist propaganda in the universities that a lot of these African leaders were exposed to, right? It's not just African leaders, right, Asian leaders. Hold on.
But let's not say natural, because natural is subjective. What's natural to one person it may not be natural to someone else.
No, I'm saying you said that it's not it's natural that these natural and logical for these leaders to
yes. What I'm stating is that it is seemingly logical.
Hold on.
It is seemingly logical. Just say I was being oppressed by women my whole life. This is in case I'm just using this as a colorful example. But I was being oppressed by women my entire life. I grew up in a situation in which women were in positions of power. It was a matriarchy. In those positions, I was oppressed. I was downtrodden. I was a victim of physical, and verbal and emotional abuse. Then quite naturally, I would say, you know what? When I liberate myself from that oppression, and irrespective of how I was able to do so, I'm going to say I don't want to go back to being in a situation in which I'm in a situation that's ran by women. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so it's kind of apples and oranges, because again, we're talking about economic systems. It's not natural to merge imperialism and capitalism, right? Because that view that imperialism is synonymous with capitalism, that exploitation is synonymous with capitalism, is propaganda. All right. Hold on. I don't. You have to allow me to finish the point. You gotta allow me.
If you are in a colony that's being exploited by an imperial power, and the exploitation is rooted in capitalism, that would make sense.
If it would make sense if exploitation is rooted in capitalism, but I am telling you, hold on. I am telling you that exploitation is not rooted in capitalism.
Okay, so
the idea.
Economic exploitation is rooted in capitalism.
Yes, I'm gonna. The idea that exploitation is synonymous with capitalism and capitalism synonymous with exploitation, I'm telling you that is propaganda. And that was a propaganda that was taught to African leaders in the universities in Europe and America at the time. And it's not just hold on, please. Hold on. It's not just African leaders. Caribbean leaders went through it the same way. Caribbean leaders who were educated in London School of Economics and other places in America went back to the Caribbean and came back with the same Fabian socialist top-down central planning, industrial policy, import substitution, dependency theory. All these offshoots of socialism and Marxism, they were in vogue at the time, and they were all applied in the Caribbean and in Africa and in some parts of Asia and in Latin America with predictable results, meaning lower productivity, malinvestment, impoverishment, all of that. debt crisis, and it was a debt crisis as a result of these experiments after colonialism that led
but like I said, you're also what, removing the Western interference regarding seeking to do what, destabilize these countries because they chose to not be part of the global economic capitalist system. The second issue is, let me ask you this question, and then Ola, I'll bring you in, but I just need you to turn your camera on while you're in queue, and then we'll bring you in, and then Brother Philip, you could tap in. Have you read How Europe Underdeveloped Africa by Walter Rodney?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
So are you making an argument that
have you read I'm sorry, hold on. Have you read George
No. Have you said you've read the book? Do you disagree with the claims that Walter Rodney made in his treatise?
I'm gonna answer the question, but just a quick question. Are you aware of a Ghanaian economist, or the late Ghanaian economist George Ayittey?
No, I am not.
Okay. Yeah, I've read Walter Rodney. I mean, everybody in Jamaica activists.
Do you make the argument?
Or in the Caribbean.
Do you make the argument that the claims Walter Rodney makes in his book are false?
The claim that
Europe purposely.
I'm trying to answer the question. I'm trying to answer the question. Imperialism underdevelops not only Africa, but even the host country, the mother country, the so-called mother country. All right. Now that claim is correct. However,
so how does imperialism underdevelop the mother country?
I'm just trying to answer the question.
You said yes. So, but how does imperialism?
Allow me to answer it first, and then you ask something else. I'm just gonna try to answer it. Yes, that claim that imperialism and slavery underdevelops the Africa and even the host nation, because these imperialist adventures are expensive, and they come from the taxpayer, and the taxpayer is also being exploited by the monarch. Just as how the American taxpayers are being exploited to fund wars in Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. Right? America isn't enriched because of imperial wars. No, what the mistake Walter Rodney did, but that's not America. That's just Wall Street, right? So the mistake that Walter Rodney and all the Marxists do is to then equate, from that non sequitur, to then equate capitalism, or indirect capitalism, as exploitative and as responsible for the underdevelopment. So therefore, logically based on that argument, that if Africa wants to develop, it has to reject capitalism and adopt Marxism or one of its variants, dependency theory, etc. And that mistake after independence, was what is largely responsible for the underdevelopment of Africa today compared to the rest.
I would disagree, but just pass it to Brother Philip. He's been waiting patiently. And Michael O says host nation more like parasitic nation. All right, go ahead, Brother Philip.
Greetings, Lumumba, Dynast.
Peace.
The whole panel. It's good to see you all again. I'm not going to stay long, but I did want to drop a couple of things here. And one of the things I want to thank you guys for was I realized how many books I have not read. So I appreciate you guys sharing some books that I should read. What I wanted to say was, before we got into the weeds about this, I was looking up who said, and it was Deng Xiaoping, and he says, I don't care what color the cat is, black or white, as long as it catches mice. And I think we kind of get lost in the weeds of the problem. The problem that we have, or at least that I believe that we have, is money and circulating money amongst ourselves. And if you want to call that Pan-Africanism, okay, I defined it as creating markets within Africans to sell goods and services. Now, if you want to call that Pan-African creating of markets, okay. But the bottom line is that the other groups that we're around circulate money. Slavery was able to congeal because the Europeans who had fought wars against each other for hundreds of years all agreed that this was an economic model that helped them. And so they were willing to come together based upon the economic interests that they shared amongst one another, even though they hate each other. And it is my argument that the response to that is to create a market amongst ourselves because it's in our interest.
You sound like a Garveyite.
Arguably, but you know, this is the thing. I'm not really a big person for labels. I would not necessarily say I'm one group or another. I believe in Black people getting money together. That is basically the core of it. And if you want to call that Pan-African, okay. You know, I'm good with that. If you want to call that Garveyite, okay.
Well, hold on very quickly. O'Shea Duke Jackson says you hear them saying they Pan-African, but you never see them spending money with Blacks. Only theories. Laugh out loud. O'Shea Duke Jackson, I need you to tap in and be part of the show, because if you make that claim, you need to substantiate it, and you need to provide me an example of someone who claims to be a Pan-Africanist or is an actual Pan-Africanist who does not practice the fourth principle of Kwanzaa, which is Ujamaa. So O'Shea Duke Jackson, tap in and be part of the conversation. O'Shea Duke Jackson. Go right ahead, brother. And Lion Selassie, I need you to turn your camera on in the background while you're in queue so I can bring you on, make sure that you're not someone who's trying to troll.
So you see what Felipe was saying. You know, what we need to do is to create entities that generate money and put money in our pocket. You see, if you are as wealthy, trillions of dollars or euros, as wealthy as we are in Africa, if you are not going to protect it, others are going to come in and they are going to capitalize on it and take it and do away whatever they want to do. Until we start creating the necessary structures that will protect us and protect our wealth, others are going to come in and chip it away. Because if you are as wealthy as we are, and we shouldn't forget, the wealth of Africa belongs to every Black person on this planet. It is an ancestral entity that belongs to all of us. So we have to create the structures that protect it and we can extract out of it than just sitting down and saying that, hey, imperialism and this and that and that. We have passed that period.
Can I respond with something very, very simple? And I think O'Shea makes a valid, if not excellent point. I can only respond to that point by saying what I have seen for years as an attorney, which is that our businesses are undercapitalized. And I'm saying African businesses, whether they're on the continent or they're in the diaspora. And what winds up happening is people are not able to develop their business in such a way where they can function in the market properly. And so they wind up cutting corners and saying, well, I'm a Black business, or you know, whatever their label is with regards to their group, and therefore you should patronize me because I'm Black, as opposed to I am a solid business who is owned by Blacks. And that has to do with the lack of circulation of capital amongst ourselves. Look, I will use this example and then I'm going to pass the mic. I know a lot of people want to speak. The Indian American has literally built a circulating economy right in Black Americans' faces. They literally took over a period of about 30 years, the Quickie Mart, the gas station, and the motel in front of Black people. How did they do it? Well, because they had circulating money amongst their group and with India. It's very simple to see. And then they stacked their money together as a group and leveled up. And if you look, Indian Americans are the highest paid Americans in the country, higher than whites, higher than East Asians. They are the highest paid group. And a big part of that is because they circulate their money. Black Americans, for a number of different reasons, struggle with this. And the number one reason that I see is we don't have enough money. And when we do have enough money, we often want, we want when you actually, like, you know, I have many times for clients and for friends of mine that are trying to start a business, that I've done the paperwork for them, you know, to help get them started. And then the part of that is I wind up discounting my rate in order to help them get up, because they don't have the money to pay actual attorney fees in the way that they need to, right? And it's my contribution to the community. I also have volunteered for decades at various legal clinics to try to help our community. And I'm saying over and over and over again, I see that the business does not have enough money to sustain itself in a way that will make it competitive within the market. And that directly has to do with the non-circulation money.
Right. So let me get to this, read this super chat. O'Shea here. Hold on. I'm gonna let you give you a chance. O'Shea here says, tap in and explain. My whole channel does that all day long. I respect to your brothers on the channel. But yes, I need you to tap in because you made a statement that is a generalized statement, right? Broad generalization, right? That's why we want you to tap in and be part of the conversation. Also, there was an FBA lion made a claim about Pan-Africanists on YouTube, just attack each other. So I would need you to tap in. Yes, FBA young lion. I need you to tap in and substantiate your point. Yes, he says YouTube Pan-Africanists are constantly attacking each other instead of finding common ground and uniting. So I would need you to tap in and substantiate that claim where you've seen an individual who is an actual Pan-Africanist on YouTube attacking other Black people, right? Once again, someone who is an actual Pan-Africanist. So please tap in, be part of that conversation. But a complex, you've been waiting patiently. I will give you the floor. And
peace and blessings.
I
think somebody was before me. I'm trying to see the name.
Okay, was it Brother Ellis? Was it Brother Ellis, D-Roy Ellis?
With a K, Kali, I think.
Well, I don't see that person here, but
I was gonna make a response to Philip. I was gonna just make a quick response about the circulating dollar. I mean, we have to be careful that we're not mixing correlation and causation. I mean, if circulating the dollar made Indians rich, how come India is not a rich country? I mean, they have billions of people over there. How come the circulating of billions of dollars over there not making them rich? The circulating of the dollar is almost as fallacious as the Keynesian circulating or multiplier effect. An economy is not about circulating dollars. An economy is about creating wealth. It's about using resources, scarce resources that have alternative uses in its most efficient manner. If you are producing value for somebody, of course, you're going to be wealthy, or if you're creating value for lots of people, then you're going to be wealthy, and that's where the money comes in. I don't think the money comes in terms of circulating. If circulating the dollar made countries rich, where did the money come from?
Well,
to circulate.
First off, India is one of the top rising economies in the world, and they're predicting, should China collapse, that India may actually overtake it. But the core of this is when you go, let's just take something very simple. I like to keep these things simple, and then I want to let the other people speak. That when our college graduates and graduate level students come out of school, we don't have an economy in Black America to be able to hire them outright. The other groups do. And so what you have is a situation where, wait, let me finish my point and then you can let the other people talk. That at the core of it, when one of our kids comes out of a HBCU or comes out of a traditional land grant college, the Black small business economy does not have the strength nor the breadth to absorb those workers. So it puts our people in a position where they've got to go to the other groups for employment. That is the core of the circulation.
Why is that bad?
Hold on. And we also don't have multinationals. So I point out the example in Chicago where the last Black American bank was supported by the Bank of Ghana. And that bank was regulated out of business primarily because our deposit levels, and almost all of the banks, why they went out of business in Chicago, our deposit levels were too low. So what winds up happening is that the bank then has to gain enough treasuries to offset its low deposit levels. Well, when that happens, then they can't make loans to the community and its community businesses. This is the issue of circulation that I'm talking about. And I challenge you to point to an area of Black success that does not have these institutions in place. So I'm going to leave it there. I know complex.
I know the idea that you have a Black economy and an Indian economy, etc., in America is not sound, because an economy is not isolated pockets of ethnic groups circulating money. Black Americans are the richest Black people in the world. Indian Americans are the richest Indians in the world as a group. Swedish Americans are the richest Swedes in the world. The common factor in all of that, America. Why? Because America is a highly productive economy. It's an integrated economy. It's not perfectly integrated. Of course, it has pockets, but the only reason why Black Americans, Swedes, and Indians in America are as wealthy as they are is because America is a highly productive economy. And we can go into lots of reasons for that. But in terms of India being an important rising economic power, India is a rising economic power now, just like China is a rising economic power or was a rising economic power. Is not because of the Chinese and the Indians circulated the money over there with their billions of people, was because of trade liberalization. And that opening up of trade with the West was what allowed them to rise, because trade enriches people and isolation and impoverishes, right? When the Europeans were rising out of the Middle Ages, out of the poverty of the Middle Ages, the goal was to get a route to the East, because that was where the wealth was, that was where the big trade was, that was where the action was. And Europe could not have gained any ascendancy if they had stayed in Europe, and everybody, and the Spanish circulated with the Spanish, and the Portuguese circulated with the Portuguese, and the French with the French, which was what the medieval economy was. It was very fractured. The division of labor and specialization and capitalism wasn't very developed. Therefore, they were poor, right? And that's one of the reasons why Africa is poor, because the division of labor, economic freedom, regulations, taxes, government spending that crowd out private spending, all of these things crowd out investment and stunt development.
Hold on.
If I could interject real quick, shout out to
super chat.
Yeah, shout out to O'Shea Duke Jackson Ghana for the super chat. Go
I'm gonna
ahead.
read the super chat. As a brother living in Africa with a business in Africa, I see a lot of people on the continent in the diaspora talking about Pan-Africanism and not living it through economics. The proof is evident. So I would make the argument that someone talking about something and being a practitioner of it are two different things. right? There are a lot of people who talk about boxing, but they aren't actual boxers, right? So that's just the thing there. And the FBA line says black is the ethnic name of Black American, just like Igbos, Yorubas, so on and so forth. So I will push back against that, right? One, when we talk about the enslavement of African people here in the Americas of the Western world, the death, decadence, and dysphoria of the Western world, what we found is there was a process of dis-Africanization and then racialization, right? I even covered this in my class on African American history. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm actually bring this up because I don't want people to think I'm just, pulling stuff out of my derriere. But in fact, the Kenyan-born scholar, Ali Missouri, was the one who actually wrote a book on this. And he talks about, I think it's week 3. I got to find my week 3 PowerPoint where he talks about this very issue. And I'm going to bring this up so that you all can to understand. Well, it must be week 4. Just bear with me very quickly, family. And I'll be able to bring this up because I want to address this issue. Can we talk about the misinformation that oftentimes is promoted online? I find it to be extremely, extremely problematic. So here we go. Yeah, I got it right here. So thank you for bearing with me, family. I'm going to share this rather quickly, and then we're going to pass it to Dynast, and then I think Brother Jabril Africa is where he's been waiting patiently. So once again, let me share my screen here.
Yeah, because I want to talk. I think brother, somebody in the chat room brought up as far as the amount of Pan-African so-called gang banging that goes on online. I wanted to address that. Right.
So this Africanization, Ali Missouri wrote the book, The Africans of Triple Heritage in 1986. He talks about one of the most prominent strategies of slavery was to make captives forget as soon as possible where they came from, i.e. contrived amnesia, right? So there's a 5-step process. One, removal of personal identity. Enslaved Africans could not carry the names of their own cultures, Yoruba, Mandinka, Wolof, etc. Removal of collective identity. Ceased being Africans, became niggers and Negroes. Removal of collective pride. African nostalgia was undermined and destroyed by perpetual negative indoctrination. Being enslaved, it was deliverance from savage and primitive Africa and ashamed of where they came from. Removal of religious beliefs. Traditional religious beliefs survived less in the U.S. than in Brazil and the Caribbean. Then, of course, linguistic removal. African languages were ceased as the enslaved learned the language of the masters, English. And then, of course, he talks about there was a process of racialization as well, where rather than having an ethnic identity, we took on a racial identity regarding being Black. So when you make the claim, brother, that Black is the ethnic name, it's not an ethnic name. It's a racial name, not an ethnic name. The ethnic name for would be African American, rather than Black American. Black American is a racial name. And most scholars of African American studies or Black studies or Pan-African studies argue that African people should identify themselves by their ethnicity rather than by from a racialized standpoint. Also, J-Line Selassie, you're in the queue. I need you to turn your camera on, and then I could bring you into the live because I have to make sure that you're not someone who is trying to cause problems. So I'm going to stop my share there. But once again, we want to make sure that we're promoting correct information, not misinformation. So Dynast, you go right ahead when you talk about the Pan-African gang banging. Then we will pass it to Brother Jabril Africa.
Right. So one of the criticisms that I've received in the past is that since I have a travel brand and I charge to take people to Africa to experience Africa, that's not Pan-African. What are your thoughts on that?
What nonsense.
Wait, say that again, Dynast.
So, I have a travel brand. In fact, Complex, he's been to Africa with me twice.
Okay.
I take people to Africa. So the gang-banging internet YouTube Pan-African say that is anti-Pan-African to have a service to take people to Africa.
Wow. Who said that?
You got. I'm not gonna mention any names because I don't want to get back and forth. But yeah, they've said. In fact, they've made videos about it. Okay. And they claim to be Pan-African. It's just for some reason.
Okay, can you send me a message telling me who this is? Because
I will. I'll send it to you. It's just
but one thing, once again, there are a lot of people who claim to be Pan-Africanists who don't actually know what Pan-Africanism is. So that's why, I don't get into what somebody's claiming. I get into what someone acts. You have a number of people who claim to be Christians, but aren't actually Christians. Right? So that's why I focus on, are you actually that, oh, Westside Mike gonna come and say it's probably a Ohio State fan. We gonna keep doing that. You throwing shade like that. Okay. Meet me on that squad. Because here's the thing: what you max on the squad is what I rep on the squad. So you want to come that way, I'm throw some shade back at you, right? He said it might be an Ohio State fan. Very good. Brother Jabril Africa, go right ahead. And then Brother Complex.
Don't forget me.
And Brother Ellis.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know where to start, but I'll start by saying, Brother Lumumba, I'm a man of my word. I told you I'll pull up one of your next few streams, and I kept my word. As you know, I'm very busy, and I don't particularly like doing live streams, to be honest. But I'm here with the family. I was out organizing all last night as well for our people. So there's like 1,000 different ways that I can going about this argument and this conversation. I'll just start by saying most people, vast majority of people who call themselves Pan-Africanists are not Pan-Africanists, right? As you stated, Lumumba, just recently, just because you say you are something doesn't mean you are that, right? So that's where I'll start. And following along with that branch, I would say what Brother O'Shea Dukes Jackson said, how, the diaspora, or I should say Pan-Africanism, a lot of people who claim Pan-Africanism, I took a photo of it. A lot of people who claim Pan-Africanism are not living it through economics, but that's everything. They're not living through it through economics. They're not living through it through action, right? How they live their day-to-day lives, right? The thing with Pan-Africanism is, and what a lot of people confuse is Pan-Africanism is it's an action, right? Pan-Africanism is the international unification and liberation of African people. So if you're not actively doing that work, you're not a Pan-Africanist. As the stream Brother Lumumba did a couple of days ago, where he was explaining what Pan-Africanism was, and people who claim they were Pan-Africanists had no idea what he was talking about. It was clear as day, because they're not Pan-Africanists.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that guy. Yeah.
Right? Pan-Africanists, there are some Pan-Africanists, and I'm in organizations with them that would say, oh, they're cultural Pan-Africanists. To me, that's still illogical. Yeah, exactly. Cultural nationalists. But cultural nationalists is essentially a bit different than cultural Pan-Africanists, right? Because like I said, Pan-Africanism is an action, right? Ideologies fall underneath that action, right? You have Pan-African nationalism, which is what me and Brother Lumumba are, right? You have Pan-African socialists, and much crazier ones, and I won't even mention them.
Right. Thank you. I was hoping you didn't bring them up.
No,
so
I won't. It's crazy too.
Deal with the headache. Absolutely.
Because the reason that it's crazy is because how does your ideology, your action is the international unification and liberation of African people, but your ideology isn't rooted in Africa? It's illogical. And that's what some of these quote unquote Pan-Africanists are. Me and Brother Lumumba are not that, right? We're rooted in nationalism. We're rooted in Garveyism, right? So that's what I'll say. I mean, there's so much more I can say. I mean, like there's a quote a brother that I know says all the time. People say, and I think someone earlier on said it on this live stream, Pan-Africanism is a fantasy, or he alluded to something along the lines of that. And he says, so why has the UK, US, France killed or otherwise undermined so many Pan-Africanists, right? They don't kill fantasies. Pan-Africanism is the biggest threat to global white supremacy. The international unification of all Black people globally is the biggest threat to the people who control this world. They've proved that through their actions. They proved that by killing Malcolm X. They proved that by killing Patrice Emery Lumumba. They proved that by killing Thomas Sankara, so on and so forth. Many, many more. We can be on this live stream for another hour, and I'd be naming names of Pan-Africanists that were assassinated, right? And Pan-African movements that were also Biko, of course. So many. We can go on for hours, right? We understand. I mean, the U.S. government has even talked about the fear they have of Africans in America uniting with Africans back home. I think it's Memorandum 46, if I'm not mistaken.
I remember reading that where they actually stated that this is something they were actively working against.
Yep, and that's a U.S. document where essentially, higher ups within the U.S. government are communicating amongst themselves with this information. We understand, brothers and sisters, The only way you can be a Pan-Africanist if you're doing Pan-Africanist work. Primarily, I would say being a part of an organization. I give some leeway to brothers and sisters who may have left an organization or are looking for another one, but are Pan-Africanists and are still actively doing the work. Pan-Africanism is rooted in work. 99.9% of people who call themselves Pan-Africanists are not Pan-Africanists. They just talk it. I've seen that personally.
Yeah,
do the work. We are in a war as African people. We're being destroyed systematically, globally, for hundreds, if not thousands of years. We've been at war. Do work for our people. I honestly tell brothers and sisters, I'm in the Twin Cities, I organize out here. I tell brothers and sisters all the time, if we don't get this right within our lifetimes, there might not be black people anymore. We understand the European is not afraid to commit genocide. We understand they have the tools to do so if they want to do so, right? So please, let's move away from the division amongst us. We bring division. There's far more that unites us as African people than divides us. Let's come together. Let's organize. Let's actively do work for our people. Pan-Africanism. And that's where I'll leave it, brothers. This is BB Fahudi and Black African Power.
Brother Complex, go right ahead.
All right, peace and blessings. Can you hear me?
Yes, you hear you just fine.
All right. I think everybody on the panel is kind of agreeing. I don't think everyone's seeing the points of unity that the agreement is on portions of what makes up Pan-Africanism. A lot of people are speaking on the economic portion. Malcolm X in his oaaou, as well as unia, in which I've met with in Chicago, Nation Islam, we've all met together. We meet together. We do a lot of things together in points of unity. And on this panel, there should be points of unity or more points of unity, and there is points of unity being spoken of. First of all, we keep talking about the history of Pan-Africanism. The use of the English language is what keeps us apart. Like Africanism, the first time was used, the first person that used anything that sounded Pan-African on the history books is actually Prince Hall, who named his lodge African Lodge Number 1, wrote letters to the government about sending blacks back to Africa. This is like 1700s, early 1700s, before Edward Wilmot Blyden came out, before Marcus Garvey. But I wouldn't say before, I would say in a point of unity, they were all together at what they were talking about, the speaking points. Malcolm X broke down the speaking point and the UNIA. Brother Lumumba, if you can pull up the UNIA's or OAAU's points of
yeah, I'll bring it up right now because I actually have it. Because I had my students read it in my class. Because real quick, and I'm glad you bring this up because a lot of my students, they made the argument, well, the master narrative of Malcolm X is what? He was a rabble rouser. He was a demagogue. He did not actually have a plan of any kind, shape, or sort. And so in my course, I seek to counter the master narrative by providing factual information. So I'm going to actually bring up the OAAU right now.
That'll work. Yeah, because he did have a plan. That'll work.
Yes, he did. Let's see if I can pull this up. Okay, here. Give me a second, family. Ooh, I got a lot I got to get through here. Lord have mercy. Let's see if I can put Malcolm X in here in the comments.
Take your time.
Okay, I got it. All right. Here we go. All right. Yeah. I got it on deck. You know what I mean? Got it on deck. Okay. 1 second. Bow. Here we go. I don't know if you all are going to. Can you all see that just fine? I hope you all can, but we'll get down to it. So basic aims and objectives, self-determination, national unity. The basic unity program was restoration. In order to free ourselves from the oppression of our enslavers, then it is absolutely necessary for the African-American to restore communications with Africa. Reorientation. In order to keep the African-American enslaved, it was necessary to limit our thinking to the shores of America to prevent us from identifying with our African brothers and sisters. This made us consider ourselves an isolated minority without allies anywhere. Education. After enslaving us, the slave masters developed a racist educational system which justified to its posterity the evil deeds that had been committed against African people and their descendants. Economic security goes into that. He talks about self-defense. He also goes in on integration. He says we have We consider the word integration a misleading false term. It carries with it certain implications to which Afro-Americans cannot subscribe. And mind you, the OAAU charter was written a week before Malcolm was assassinated with the help of Dr. John Henry Clark. He states, we have observed that the uses of the term integration was designed and promoted by those persons who expect to continue a nicer type of ethnic discrimination and who intend to maintain social and economic control of all human contacts by means of imagery, classification, quotas, and manipulations based on color, national origin, or racial background and characteristics. He further states, careful evaluation of recent experiences shows that integration actually describes the process by which a white society remains set in a position to use whenever it chooses to use and however it chooses to use the best talents of non-white people. This power web continues to build a society wherein the best contributions of African Americans, in fact of all non-white people, will continue to be absorbed without note or exploited to benefit a fortunate few, while the masses of both white and non-white people will remain unequal and unbenefited. And you can find the charter to Malcolm X's Organization of African American Unity in the book Modern Black Nationalism from Marcus Garvey to Louis Farrakhan. The charter actually begins on page, drum roll please, work with me, page 106. So Modern Black Nationalism from Marcus Garvey to Louis Farrakhan, edited by William L. Vandenberg. Page 106, you can actually find the charter for Malcolm X's Organization of African American Unity. Or if you put your email in the chat, I would actually email you the charter myself. Very good. Go ahead, Brother Complex. And right. How did you know I had a copy of the charter? How you know that? How you know that? You creeping on me, right?
It's needed. It's needed because that charter, UNIA's charter, matches the Black Panther Party's 10-point program, matches the Nation of Islam, I believe, 12 points of their program on the back of every final call. They match. And here's the thing people don't get. Everyone is fulfilling a piece of what the ancestors put before us and what the oppressor made us have to do. A lot of us are reactionary, as the Black Panther Party would say, and others. We've been reactionary, but then some of us were proactive. And not us, because I'm young, and you're young. We're all young on the panel. If we weren't there, we are definitely reactionary and not proactive. However, to speak not just about Dynast, everyone needs to understand the point of unity. We're all taking a piece and a part. So if your piece is the economic piece, that's fine. What you just broke down from OAAU, that's a piece. So for people to understand Pan-Africanism, I believe what Malcolm X laid out in OAAU and so many others, they lay it out in steps and points. And in each of those steps and points, that all together, that makes up what people want to call Pan-Africanism. So if you're doing a piece, it doesn't mean you are not a Pan-African. It just means you're fulfilling a piece. But get the rest of the pieces to the puzzle to have a whole picture. In the picture, you have a frame and you have a picture that's fragile. The frame protects the picture. Everyone is trying to get a corner of the frame and protect the picture that is fragile. The reason it stays fragile is that when you don't come together in points of unity to make that 360 points in that square and keep the perfect picture. So that should not be an argument on the definition of Pan-Africanism when we should be looking at everyone's points and programs, including Prince Hall, including Edward Wilmot Blyden, including Dr. John Henry Clark. I'm skipping some people, including W.E.B. Du Bois. And I also heard the argument of socialism versus capitalism. We should not be arguing amongst ourselves their points. That's their points. The Democratic Party does a lot of socialist programs, if you didn't know. The Republican Party does a lot of capitalist programs, if you didn't know. One bird, two wings. We have to find our points of unity to fly ourselves. I'll pause there.
Right, very good. And I just want to say, once again, I don't know how you knew I had the charter, but good luck in there. But, when I was part of the Pan-African Organization, Coalition of African Unity, we said, we're not going to remake the wheel. We're just going to use Malcolm's charter. Right? He said everything he said, that's what we're going to do. We were like, ain't no need to remake the wheel. Brother Ellis.
Brother Lumumba, real quick. because I don't want us to miss this point. OAAU, we talked about Malcolm's organization after he left the NOI. Why do you guys think that Malcolm was killed? That was a rhetorical question, by the way. Why do you guys think that Malcolm was killed after he left the nation? Because of the OAAU and the mere fact that he said he was going to complete Garvey's work. And he was going to Africa and making those Pan-African connections. And he was doing Pan-African work. When Malcolm X was the most dangerous to our enemies was when he fully embraced Pan-Africanism and was doing Pan-African work.
Yes,
right?
yes,
so we got to
yes,
remember
yes.
that.
Because the argument was that he wasn't just, you know, a national leader, right, or demagogue, as they wanted to call him, but he actually had international support. International support. And they said, hold on, this dude is a lot bigger than we thought he was going to be. Right? Matter of fact, you know what? I'm going to shut up. Brother Ellis, go right ahead.
All right, how you guys doing? I'm going to go back a little bit to
doing good.
That was talked about earlier. Someone said that African American don't have any money or don't have enough money. That's impossible. We have plenty of money. Now, if you had said that we don't put our money in the right places, I could agree with that a little bit. But what people have to understand, when especially African Americans, all black period, but especially African American, if you're going to put something together on a big scale, be prepared for a fist fight. Just us only, black people, be prepared for a fist fight because they will not allow it. And we have proof of that throughout the history of the United States. Every time you start something, they burn it down, right? They maim, kill, whatever they have to do to stop it. Case in point, recently, 2019, a group of black people here in Georgia bought some land in a small town, South Georgia. And would you believe, because they wanted to build a town and start a community on there. And would you believe the white people in the town went to the sheriff, right, and started complaining? So they have separatists down here. And they started protesting, right? These are private land that black people bought, right? So they are not going to allow you, right? We're only 12, 13% of the United States. They are not going to allow you to develop. Be prepared for a fist fight. Other groups like Indians, Koreans, and all that, they're going to let them through. They're going to let them slide. You see what's happening at the border. Chinese coming across the border now.
If I can interject real quick, the reason why they weren't allowed to build, and it's kind of like, I think the saying is don't telegraph your punches. They were saying like this is going to be a black only city or a black only homestead, which is technically discrimination. But if they just would have kind of just kept it to themselves and then just went on and build it, that's different.
So real quick,
I understand that. I understand that.
But let me provide another retort. But we also have to acknowledge that when we talk about anti-black racism, what we tend to find is that whites are willing to allow other racial ethnic groups to come in and be a buffer race between themselves and blacks. We saw this on the African continent. We saw this in the Caribbean. We see it in South America. We find this here in America. The other issue is that in America, when you look at study black history, what you tend to find is that when there is real or even perceived black progress, it's followed by periods of racial retrenchment. And this is what Brother Ellis is speaking to. So I give you good examples and then I'm going to shut the hell up, right?
Yeah, let me just continue. I'm almost done. Let's continue.
Okay, go right ahead.
A small point, right? So even if they Dynast, they didn't advertise it. Let me tell you something. I work all over the United States. I work in about 40 states, and I have to live there about 2, 3, 4, 5 months at a time, all over the US. And I see what's going on in this country. And I'm telling you, if you are black, before when I was younger, I didn't believe none of this. Right? But they will fight against you. They're ready to whatever they have to do, right? To stop you. That's the problem. We're not like, you know, when I was 20, I had a girlfriend, she was 22. And she said something to me once. I don't know where she got it from, but she said, listen, Delroy, everything is in black and white. There's no in between. You're either on the black side or the white side. So even if you're white, you could be on the black side. If you're black, you could be on the white side. It took me 10 years to understand exactly what she was saying. And she is completely correct. It's black and white. It's us against them. Right? And it's simple, and they know it. The only people that don't know it is black people. Right? So to go back, we have plenty of money. We have money up the wazoo. You see what I'm saying? But to use it correctly, be prepared for a fight. Right? That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
When I
in
talk
terms
about,
of
hold on, very quickly, and then I've got to pass along to OG J Speed. The Ghost has been waiting patiently. So those, when I gave those examples of real or perceived black progress being followed by periods of racial retrenchment, Reconstruction was followed by what the nadir race relations, in which anti-black racism in this country was at the zenith, and black people had no rights whatsoever. If you want to actually learn about the nadir race relations, a great book to read would be The Betrayal of the Negro by Rayford Morgan, right? Great book. I actually had the book behind me somewhere, but I'm not going to grab it. Yeah, Betrayal of the Negro. Second, post-civil rights, Black Power movement, it was followed by what? Law and Order, right? And then, of course, in COINTELPRO, and then when the election of Obama was followed by what? A rise in extrajudicial violence against black people in America, and what the rise of white nationalist hate groups. So what we find is that whenever there is real or even perceived black progress, it's followed by a period of racial retrenchment. And we can even extrapolate that to not only here in America, but globally, when African people have real or even perceived progress, it's followed by periods of racial retrenchment. An example on the continent would be what? You have independence, they gain political independence, it's followed by neocolonialism. Right, you develop your colony, you develop your country's economy. It's followed by structural adjustment, and right. So these are examples of retrenchment initiatives by what? The global north, if we don't want to use racialized terms, to keep what? African people in a position of dependency and dejection. OG Speed, the Ghost, go right ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, hotep to all the people, and then I hold all the panel, people on the panel. I hold you up to high esteem for keeping the spirit of the ancestors moving forward. 65 years on this planet, what I have found out to be a great lesson is, in the same season, all fruit don't get ripe at the same time. And when we start to understand that statement, we can understand what little you have to offer is like a grain of sand to make a brick. It builds the brick, and the brick builds the foundation of your structure. So I don't get into what's Pan-Africanism and what is not. And the reason why I don't do that is because that's like throwing a hand grenade in a room when brothers are practicing trying to be a better image and a person of themselves. So what I do, I listen, and I listen quite well. And when I would tell you brothers who are on the move to keeping this alive, my understanding of Pan-Africanist is self-preservation entwined with the natural order of things. And when you understand that, you will understand why that every species on this planet does the same thing. And I do agree along with the brother who said the only people don't understand that is black people. White people Europeans go do what they do because they're self-preservation. They don't want to be annihilated. And our sister, Dr. Francis Quester Wells, who broke that down. Nilla Fuller broke that down. And so when we get a greater understanding of what we're dealing with, it's not even about where we at. Because I am a true believer, everything goes back into the natural order of things. It goes beyond religion, spirituality, or any of that, because it's printed in your DNA. Every species on this planet protects itself and self-determination, and it has a mechanism inside of you to guard you against things supposed to harm you. And so that's how I break it down. That's how it looks for me. I join hands with everybody I see that is doing something positive, regardless of how little or how big, because I know that there are a piece of that grain of sand that makes that brick. And I just want to commend you, brothers, for keeping this conversation going on with all this craziness going on in these YouTube streets. I've been in it ever since 2012, and I'm always there to just say this: love and peace, and always strive for the truth.
Appreciation, but I will push back a little bit. I do think it's important to understand what Pan-Africanism is, because what we have had in the past and even today, and this even took place when I was in college, when I was an undergrad, is you have a number of individuals who will misrepresent Pan-Africanism. I would give an example. There was a brother who was claiming to be a Pan-Africanist, but he only pursued relationships with white women. So I said, brother, that's incongruent with the values and the core tenets of Pan-Africanism. Right. So I said, you know, and if you do that, you're misrepresenting Pan-Africanism, and it hurts Pan-Africanism credibility.
But my brother,
so I do think it's almost to the point as you might have someone who claims they're Muslim and they're out getting drunk every night. Well, a person who would say, "Hey, man, you're making Islam look bad."
I never said not to understand what it is, but I do know this: as men and women, we all are given a journey, and nobody can do that journey of the 5 million sperm cell that makes it to that egg. We all are given a journey. And if anybody thought that I was saying that we shouldn't understand it, well, what I'm saying is we each are given a journey. It may don't look the same as someone else's journey, but it's part of that grain that makes this whole. And I'm glad you are breaking it down, because every structure has to have a foundation. So I'm not disregarding that. But what I'm saying is, if you come upon someone that you might think might not be important because they're not striving in the way you are striving, but they're doing the work, and how little and small and insignificant you might think it is, it may be the most important piece of that puzzle to make that function the way it should be. That's all I'm saying. Understood.
Hey, the floor is open now. So
yeah, I wanted to piggyback on what OG said about, you know, all fruits not ripen at the same time. In the subtext of, you know, barriers to Black people progress, people fighting against us, people assassinating us, we must remember not to be reductive in our thinking, not to reduce everything to assassination and sabotage, because Africa, just like Europe and America, diverse in terms of ideology and thinking and power struggles, and not everything can be reduced to, well, ex-socialist African leader got assassinated or overthrown, therefore socialism was seen as the threat. Because remember, the Duvaliers in Haiti, they were overthrown. Was that because what they were doing was seen as a threat to America? No, it can be explained by the internal conflicts in that country, some of which are unique to that country, and some of it is connected with outside. But we should not just reduce everything to assassination and sabotage in explaining why certain socialist experiments or Pan-African experiments don't work. Because Nyerere of Tanzania was not assassinated, he was not overthrown, he was given more foreign aid than the Ivory Coast, yet with all of that, Tanzania still could not make socialism work, right? And if we compare Tanzania's attempt, despite all the aid, to Israel's attempt at socialism, despite all the aid, despite all the Western protection, despite all the money of the rich Jews pouring in and supporting Zionism, supporting kibbutzism, yet still Israel's socialist experiment too was also a failure. And we can replicate this throughout the globe, whether it's in Asia, Europe, Middle East, Africa, Caribbean, Latin America. Socialism just don't work, right? And I would encourage everybody to read the Ghanaian economist George Ayete, and you can read people like Walter Williams and Thomas Sowell to learn exactly why socialism doesn't work. It doesn't have anything to do with capitalist greed or whatever. Is the inherent structures in socialism just not conducive to productivity and wealth creation? We must remember too.
Disagree with that.
Well, so
I got to go, my brothers.
Okay.
My brothers. I got to go, but I'm gonna support your channel. I'm gonna subscribe to your channel, and monetarily, I will support your show because I love this. So peace, love, and always strive for the truth.
Appreciate
Black
it.
power, Elder.
Thank you for joining, brother. Thank you.
When you
Yes,
provided
sir.
the example of in Haiti, while you talk about Papa Doc and Baby Doc, they were running a kleptocracy, right? And this, that's just reality of the situation. But I'm familiar with some of the work of Thomas Sowell, and he leaves a lot out, right? And so when you talk about not being reductive, right, and not making these broad generalizations, right, I think you're doing the same now, right? Because once again, in Haiti, Papa Doc and Baby Doc, they ran the platform. They ran their presidential campaigns were based on Black nationalism, but when they got into the office, they just became kleptomaniacs.
All right, so
that's something to consider.
So Haiti, Haiti and the Duvaliers is an example of what I'm saying, that things are complex. I don't want to be too cliche, but politics is complex because Papa Doc, when he just came in to office, he was elected. He didn't go in there. And hold on. He was elected, and America at the time did not support him. America supported his mulatto rival, right? And you're right. When he came into power, there was a lot of contradictions, etc. But Haiti was under sanctions, etc. So you can't extrapolate from that and say that, okay, because America sanctioned Haiti under Duvalier, that therefore Duvalier's philosophy or whatever is what's going to liberate us. Because
first off, no one brought up Haiti or the philosophy of their administration. So what are you talking about?
No. The argument is that because socialist leaders were assassinated or overthrown, therefore socialism is a threat to the West, or Pan-Africanism in terms of socialist Pan-Africanism is a threat to the West, and therefore that is the ideology that's going to...
You can't overtalk me on my show, okay? This is my show. I could do that. No one has advocated for Pan-African socialism. All we did was provide. Matter of fact, when I was reading the abstract from my thesis that I wrote in graduate school, I stated that prominent Pan-African leaders and politicians and statesmen were assassinated. I said nothing about socialism.
Yeah, but
what I did say is that there was some African nation states that had a socialist economy, and one of the reasons that those economies failed was due to trade embargoes by the West. I said nothing about Haiti. So
I'm not saying.
No. I said I didn't say anything about Haiti.
No. I'm not saying that you said something about Haiti. I brought up Haiti as an example of politics being complicated, and you can't extrapolate from sanctions and leaders being overthrown that whatever ideology they were following, that was the reason why they were overthrown. No,
we can do that because hold on, real quick. We
I gotta say something myself.
The West stated that was the reason why they took issue with them. The second issue is you're talking about apples and oranges here, right? The second issue is one of the contemporary issues of Pan-Africanism is what? The fact that many heads of state are what? Dictators now. Right, so these are like I said, Papa Doc, Baby Doc. They weren't promoting Pan-Africanism of any kind. They were sitting there. They were in power, and they were living luxury.
Can I say, all right, you said enough about socialism. Let me talk now, please.
Please go right ahead.
All right. Socialism wasn't allowed to work. Okay, by the powers that be. No, that's number one. Number two. America is one of the biggest socialist countries in the world, but it's disguised. If you didn't have socialism here, this place would be in chaos. It is disguised. They use capitalism to disguise socialism. You have to have socialism in a society to a point. You have to have it. Capitalism cannot work by itself. Okay, ask China.
if
Ask China,
socialism,
who's about to have the biggest economy right now, if not the biggest. Okay, it's
no,
socialism along with capitalism.
no, China has a GDP per capita on par with probably Mexico, right? So China is, so you have to put China in context. China has a big economy because it has lots of people, but in terms of richness per capita income, China is way behind America. And in terms of America,
I didn't say that. I didn't say they wasn't behind America. Okay,
no, I'm saying that they're way behind.
I'm telling you.
Can I silver bullet this?
Can I finish?
Yeah, finish,
All right,
brother. Sorry.
No country works without socialism to it. None whatsoever. You have to have socialism in the country, and United States have socialism in the country. Okay,
can you define socialism? Can you define socialism, please?
Democratic Party. Democratic Party.
No. Seriously, in all seriousness,
that's easy to explain.
Free breakfast.
That's easy to explain. They use welfare, social security, welfare, social security. That's socialism.
Okay,
that's a form of socialism.
Hold on, please. Just give me a working definition of socialism.
You didn't hear me say? I said.
No, just.
It's where the state owns the means of production or supports the means. And what here's the silver bullet. If it's
you didn't hear what I said. You didn't hear what I said. I said a form of socialism. That's what I said.
Yeah, you're right. I agree with you. I just want to silver bullet this because we get off track with these definitions. Here is my opinion of this argument about socialism versus capitalism. Mzungus are completely fine with socialism, communism, capitalism, as long as it's them that can do it.
Thank you very much.
Whenever an African gets involved with any of these things, they got big problems with it. And I will point out the examples. All the Scandinavian countries have some form of socialism.
Thank you.
They are capitalist countries.
Thank you. Norway, all of them. Switzerland.
But this is a non sequitur.
It's not a non sequitur. That the difference is America, which Delroy eloquently pointed out, has some of the biggest socialism you've ever seen, and it's called too big to fail. And we've done too big to fail in this country for the last 30 years. All of these corporations go to the government when they make economic mistakes and get bailed out.
Yeah, I love this.
Is that a drag on the American economy?
Hold on. And they get bailed out by the Fed.
Yes. Is that a drag on the American economy?
Hold on. Which is backstopped by American taxpayers.
Right.
The only people
receiving socialism.
Yes, but is that good? Is it good for the economy?
Let me finish.
It's good for the rich economy.
American citizens, however, receive some of the most deregulated capitalism that they can find. And I will point out our healthcare system, for example, that it is a pure capitalist situation where if you get too sick, you die. They don't offer healthcare coverage for everything. It is not a socialist system. That's what taxpayers get. But if you are a too big to fail corporation or executive, do we remember in 2007 and 2008 where we were bailing out all of these banks and the executives still got their bonuses? What the hell is that? That's not socialism. Stop it.
And it's also socialism for the poorest of the poor. You can't be a working class. You have to be the poorest of the poor to get something. Okay.
Can I respond now?
You can, but let me finish this last point and then I will be quiet. When it's black people trying to circulate money amongst black people, then there's all this discussion about, is it capitalist or is it socialist? And you can look at every country down the line, whether it's Africa or the Caribbean or Latin America, and they always attack it. Why? Because It's a competitive market to their market, pure and simple. So we shouldn't get involved with that argument. That's why I said it doesn't matter what you call it. If it's a black cat or a white cat, as long as it catches mice. That's what we got to focus on. So I'll leave it there.
Very quickly, Jonathan Miller. Hold on, very quickly, Jonathan Miller, you're in queue. I need you to come up in queue so I can make sure you're not someone who's trolling. Then I will bring you into the live.
All right, so Philip made an excellent point, right? Government bailouts of corporations is a form of socialism, right? Privatize profits, socialize losses. That is not capitalism, because capitalism is a profit and loss system. The profits encourage risk-taking, losses encourage prudence. This kind of system of profit and loss, that is what encourages innovation and competition and punishes those who aren't innovative and those who aren't competitive. And this guarantees efficient use of scarce resources. And that's why capitalism is more productive than socialism that bails out losses. Yes, you're right. Bailouts are socialistic, and taxpayers are forced to subsidize inefficient companies on Wall Street or wherever. Right. Number two, you mentioned healthcare being pure capitalism. That is not true. The American healthcare system, number one, you have Medicare and Medicaid, which is again a socialized version of healthcare.
So you just proved my point.
Hold on, please.
You proved my point.
Please, hold on, please.
You're talking nonsense, though, bro.
Hold on, and follow the connections. Please. So Medicare and Medicaid, plus you have occupational licenses, immigration restrictions on doctors and nurses, plus you have price controls, you have cronyism, you have certificate of need that artificially restricts hospitals and supplies and doctors by the government, state, local, and federal. American healthcare system, half of it is government owned. The other half is private, but heavily regulated and cronies and restricted. This is why costs are going up and quality for people, especially Black people, goes down, because it is a socialistic system. This is nothing close to capitalism. Again, capitalism is a profit and loss system where competitors are free to enter the market and offer a better system, attracted by the promise of high profits. So if there's high profits in an industry, you're going to attract competitors to try to get that industry, to try to get those competitors. But if the government steps in and create all kinds of barriers and means to deflect competition and keep incumbents, inefficient incumbents in power, just like with Wall Street bailouts, etc., that is not capitalism. And that is what is putting a drag on the American economy, because over the years, you have regulations, you have taxes, you have protectionism, you have all kind of legislation that hampers the market economy. And that's why America is struggling now with the 1% growth, especially after the 2008 crash. It's because America is a mixed economy, and the socialist part of the mixed economy is dragging down the economy. Because socialism,
man, you need to stop, bro. Stop, man. Stop the nonsense, bro. Enough with that.
I have a comment for Brother Lumumba and Dynast when y'all get a chance.
What kind of nonsense is that? What part of Jamaica you from, bro? Mocha?
Could you please offer an intelligent argument in response? Thanks.
How is that intelligent? How is that intelligent? Socialism, part of America, is dragging. America prints money. America used their military might and their position in the world to print money that's not real. Okay? They print money. The American dollars don't work.
American government.
And you're going to see.
Government prints it? Is the American government printed?
Who printed?
Is the American government printed?
Who print the money?
Yeah, the government.
Brothers,
exactly.
Brothers.
That's socialism.
That's what I'm saying.
That is socialism.
The money is not real. The American dollar is not real. It's backed up by the petrodollar right now.
I agree.
But this shit is about to hit the fan in about a year.
That's socialized money. Go and read the Communist Manifesto. The 8th plank is
Oh
the
Lord,
central
have
bank
mercy, bro.
controls the money.
Brother
You got to
Ellis.
That's
make up
Karl
your mind,
Marx.
bro. Make up your mind. Is this a socialist country or not?
It's a mixed
Brother Ellis.
economy with the socialist
Okay,
part
make
dragging
up your
down the
mind. You
economy.
say socialism is no good. I'm telling you, it did not give a chance to
It's
work
if
properly.
I can interject,
That's what I'm
if
saying.
I can interject, the United States of America is a capitalist country with socialist safety nets.
It
Again,
can't work without socialist dynasty.
saying,
It
that's
cannot.
just
All right,
that's
all
just
right.
saying what.
So we
Let's
Okay.
move it
complex,
back
complex.
to
Just
Go
the
ahead.
like
African
You want
stuff.
to ask a question?
We're lost in the weeds.
Right. Yeah. So we're gonna move on. Complex. Did you want to ask a question to me and Dynast and myself?
Yes, I do.
And then I'm gonna let Brother Jonathan Miller tap in because he's been waiting patiently.
Thank you very much. For you and Dynast, because the show deals with Pan-Africanism. Brother Lumumba, can you utilize, and I know you can, the steps with Malcolm X's OAAU and answer the question for anyone on the panel, which includes all of us and Dynast, who is the Pan-Africanist based on the Pan-African points made by the OAAU? Is that something you can do?
Wait. Say that. You said who is a Pan-Africanist?
Can you utilize the steps Malcolm X put in the OAAU that you read off?
Yes.
To answer who on this panel is a Pan-Africanist or is taking part in Pan-Africanism? Can that be used? Can that be done? Because I have a presentation for African Diaspora Academies called the checklist, where we check off the list of the Black Panther Party, the Nation of Islam, UNIA, Prince Hall, Brother Kofi, which I want to use. It can be used as a, I think Philip called it I forgot what Philip called it, a litmus test for if overall Malcolm X laid out what's a Pan-Africanist. Can we not use his OAAU points to see if we're doing part of Pan-Africanism or if on the panel is a Pan-Africanist?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Like I stated, when I played a role in creating the Pan-African Dayton-based organization, the Coalition of African Unity, we used Malcolm's charter as the basis for the work that we did. So I would argue yes, right? And the charter didn't define Pan-Africanism, but it defined what they were seeking to do in their organization in the name of Pan-Africanism. So yes, I think so. I know Brother Jabril personally, and I know that he's someone who's actually a practitioner. And we've had these conversations offline, Brother Jabril and I, and so he's going to tap in momentarily that Pan-Africanism is about action, right? Yes, you need to align with the core tenets, right? You need to be, but you also need to be doing the work as well.
Exactly.
Right. So I'm asking you to use that because I believe that's the question that was being asked, and anyone on the panel should be able to answer what portion, if or not, they're taken care of based on the criteria set by not just Malcolm X, but even others. Whatever you want to use, you have a criteria. What I believe
right. I will say this in terms of the Black Panther Party was inspired by the teaching of Malcolm X, but ideologically, they stated that they were a Black Marxist organization rather than Pan-Africanist. And then the Nation, we know, focuses more so they have a religious nationalist organization rather than a Pan-African organization. So I do want to just make that clear. Now, there are points of engagement where you can work with them, but from an ideological frame of reference, those organizations were not in line with Pan-Africanism from an ideological frame of reference.
Agreed. I'm just going by their points of their programs because they do align with each other. But for the sake of this panel, if you could just use Malcolm X's, if we can agree that Malcolm X's points.
Yeah, like I said, I think that's for each person on the panel.
They're doing a portion of it, which means I can actually end it, which means as a checklist, everyone possibly is doing a portion, which doesn't mean you're not a Pan-Africanist. It just means you're doing a portion. Right. There's a holistic approach to see if you're holistically practicing Pan-Africanism, and if you can utilize that, Brother Lumumba, it can square up this whole you know.
Absolutely.
Thing.
In fact, I'm gonna give a brief example, and then I'm gonna pass it to the brothers. So, I work out on a regular basis. My Instagram is Body by Lumumba. Suit on Batman all day, every day. Right?
That's what you call working out, that light ass weight.
I'll tell you what. We could do a live, and I guarantee you, I'll put up more weight than you.
Hey, one more thing.
And here's the thing. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. And here's the thing, Dynast. We could do any exercise you want, and I'll lift more weight than you. That's my word.
Well, heal your shoulders up. Heal your shoulders up.
I double your reps on any exercise you want, and I'm saying it right now. So I'm just gonna keep it a buck.
Okay. This is what I do. After your surgery, rest up. Because
here's the thing. In my book, real men weigh more than 200 pounds. In my book. If you ain't a heavyweight, you ain't in my league. If you ain't a heavyweight, you ain't in my league. You won't be like the call.
I'm sorry for distracting Lumumba complex. Go ahead.
Right. Let me get back focused. Right. So you all can see I be talking trash all the time, right?
I want to give y'all my Big Ten in the building, though. My Illinois in the building, though.
No doubt. You see I talk trash all the time. But yeah, so when I was at the gym, there was a brother from Somalia, and he came to me, and I've mentioned this a couple of times on my platform. And he was like, I want to talk to you because you're a Pan-Africanist. And he was like, I know you're a Pan-Africanist, right? He just knew this. We had a conversation. I was able to, give him some great advice regarding what he was doing. But I state that to say, in terms of what Brother Jabril was saying, it's the work that you're doing. And I would argue you tend to know a person by their work, right? Your reputation precedes you. So just something to consider. But also, and I got your messages, Dynast. All I can say is, as a Pan-Africanist, someone who's been a Pan-Africanist for the past 18 to 19 years, if I have a disagreement with someone, like we did the first hour of this broadcast, what did I do? Hey, let's have a conversation, public conversation, respectful. We're gonna have points we agree with, and then we could tease out the issues that we disagree with, and we do it in a respectful manner. I didn't make no damn videos about you, anything like that, right? So I would argue some of this needs to be rooted, and Brother Jabril will speak to this, maturity. Like, where's the maturity at? I mean, those are the type of things that you would expect from someone who's a high schooler.
Right.
Right, and I don't know the individual, but something to say. Once again, you're watching Lumumba Speaks in Search for Who. If you haven't subscribed to Lumumba Speaks here on YouTube, make sure you do so. Also, my channel was demonetized, so I'm doing a number of lives to try to get back to that number. But if you want to be a blessing to the show, you could Cash App us at Lumumba Speaks on Cash App. But once again, Brother Ellis, I think you wanted to provide a retort, and then Brother Jabril.
real quick.
Brother Jabril, go right ahead.
My bad. But I'm just gonna quickly say, Brother Complex, using your essentially your frame of thought. I like your frame of thought. If you actually used it, you would knock out 99.95% of people who claim they're Pan-Africanists. Because most people, even in this live stream, I'm not pointing anyone out, especially on Twitter. People talk Pan-Africanism, people talk all this shit, but they don't do any work. You're not a Pan-Africanist. And I think that's the crux of the point here. And that's what we need to address. Action. Pan-Africanism is an objective, not an ideology.
So you get what I'm saying then?
I get what you're saying, brother.
And we can agree that Brother Lumumba is going to use Malcolm X's points as a checklist. And anyone on here can answer how many of those on a checklist. But if they can answer one, they can actually answer to say that they're doing some of the work of Pan-Africanism. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing I would like. I'm looking for him to, whatever criteria.
Yeah, but the problem is, as Dynast was saying, there is no manual, there is no gatekeeper for Pan-Africanism, right? You have lots of views on what progress looks like, what the end goals look like, and what are the means to those end goals. So to look for a so-called holistic approach, or to look for a metric that everybody would apply to everybody, everybody should live up to, is really misplaced. And it's not just with Pan-Africanism. As I said before, Zionism you have lots of infighting, you have lots of different interpretations, you have lots of end goals, you have lots of means to those end goals. Same thing with the EU. Just look at all the politics with the EU and the protests going on now, and who is for the EU, who is for less of the EU, who is for more autonomy, who is for environmental regulation, who is not. These kind of disagreements aren't unique to Black people, and I think that to look for so-called holistic or a pure example of Pan-Africanism.
But I agree in part, and I disagree in part. I agree with you in part and disagree with you in part. Our ancestors and our traditions have laid a foundation. Pan-Africanism, the definition of African, when it was first used, the first African-American or diaspora person I've seen use or utilize anything, when Africa first became a word used even on maps, agreed across the world, was Prince Hall, then Edward Whitmore Blyden, then Paul Kofi, then and so on, so forth down the line. There is a criteria. The thing is, we can choose one criteria and go across the board and just ask the question. But it depends on what criteria. Okay, you can say you can pick one to agree with, but EU and Israel, we don't need none of that. We talking about just our ancestors, our people only.
Hold on, Jonathan Miller, you've been waiting patiently. I'm gonna let you speak. Go right ahead.
Greetings. I just want to say quickly that when y'all have these weird discussions or arguments about capitalism, socialism, it's useless. I mean, unless y'all trying to take over a country or y'all running the country, it's really a useless discussion. So I wish y'all just stop doing that. And then I got a question for you, Lumumba and Dynast. Understanding what y'all Pan-African movement is about, what exactly are the roles that you two individually want to play in it? What's your vision for the Pan-African movement? And what is your objectives within the African movement, within the African or Pan-African movement?
Me personally, I'm just building a bridge between the diaspora and Africa, and encouraging the diaspora to explore the continent and bringing awareness to the continent. My focus is primarily on documenting the authentic and traditional cultures of the continent. That's all. To sum it up.
You're doing a great job, Dynast. Doing a great job too.
I appreciate it. Thank you. So to sum it up, it's just building that bridge. That's all. Not to overcomplicate it.
Well, I was about to say sort of the same thing. To practice simple pan-Africanism, you don't have to make it sophisticated. I support Dynast. I support other people on the platform. I live in Atlanta. I go out of my way. If I'm on this side of the town, I go out of my way to drive way across the other side of town to go to my Black restaurant or my Black cleaners or my Black liquor store, which I go on the west side, right? That's all you have to do to practice it. You don't have to be sophisticated. And that brother is correct. You don't have to say, you're going to take over a country or something like that. No, just practice it in your own way, in your own small way. As simple as that. Mm-hmm.
So let me answer the question. Let me answer the question. So yes, for me, the work that I do in Pan-Africanism is to assist African people wherever I am in the world to develop themselves holistically. So politically, socially, economically, educationally, financially, right? In every way possible. That's the work that I do. What I will say is that when you're doing the work, it needs to be congruent with the concepts and ideas of Pan-Africanism. For example, I met an individual once, nonsensical as he was, who stated that engaging in interracial relations and miscegenation was working to help African people. He actually made this claim.
Crazy.
And I know it's crazy, right?
That's crazy.
So that's why I always make the argument we need to make sure that what you're doing is congruent with the core tenets. And when people say, well, I don't know what the tenets are, so on and so forth, that's because you don't. I would make the assumption or presumptions that it's because someone has not engaged himself with literature on Pan-Africanism, what the core tenets and concepts and ideas of Pan-Africanism are.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, sir.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But let me ask something. What do you think about the Guinea president whose wife is white but practice so-called revolutionary kind of pan-Africanism?
Yes, so there are a number of individuals that make those claims who talk black but sleep white and think green.
Right.
And so that's why, Brother Jabril, we make the argument. I say holistic, that we want to make sure that, you know, you're living your life in a manner that's congruent. So I'm gonna give an example. I'm gonna open up a little bit, share a bit of my personal life. 5 years ago, I went through a very bad breakup to my former fiance. And so I was in a position where I was very vulnerable, as you can imagine, and I didn't want to date anyone. So there was a Arab woman in my doctoral program who was at me, and she was extremely attractive. But I was like, I can't be with you. She said, why? I said, you're not black. And it's incongruent with my values.
I agree with you.
Right, so I didn't say, well, she's a person of color.
Did you hit though?
Did you hit though? Oh, did you hit though? Did you hit though?
I'm gonna answer the question. I don't discuss my sexual impropriety.
Yeah, but do you understand? But answer the question. But what do you think about the Guinea president? Like I said, who does practice pan-Africanism?
We don't know if he. I'm
not familiar with him. I'm trying to look him up now.
I don't think we know about enough about what's happening in Guinea-Bissau.
I was just going to say, what did you say about Nkrumah? His wife was Arab. She was Egyptian.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. We talked about that earlier on, I think Tuesday, was it, Dynast? And so we talked about that during that historical context matters, but Brother Dwayne Omawale spoke to that. At the time, there was a push amongst African leaders, and even Malcolm X advocated for, you know, this concept of African-Arab alliance. Nkrumah married that Arab woman for political reasons. He later stated it was a mistake, and he wished he never did it.
Right. And Malcolm, just to be clear, Malcolm wasn't pushing for
but he was
with the Arabs. He was actually against miscegenation, even when
Malcolm was against miscegenation, but Malcolm had referenced the Bandung Conference, right, where it was a conference amongst people of color, for colonized and formerly colonized peoples of color. But what we end up finding out was that non-black people of color were also vehemently anti-black.
And all I want to try to bring this back to is practical stuff. The black banks are falling out because black people don't put their money in black banks, not at the levels that they need to. They don't put it in, and they don't leave it in. And my family and I do. But I'm just saying,
bank one, everybody, bank one.
But this is the thing: is when we talk about Pan-Africanism, at least on some level, and I want to take this back to something O'Shea was talking about, because I think it's relevant. There should be an institution and a practice so that everyone can plug into it easily. Meaning, if it was easy for a black person anywhere outside of Africa to be able to invest in small black African businesses in various countries, they would do it. The issue is there is no method to do that easily. And because we don't have the institutions and we don't support them, we don't practice Pan-Africanism in a holistic way. And so my thing, at least I want to throw this panel, is to be focused less on the definitions and more on the actual actions that help black people, black businesses, and black institutions. Also, our institutions that we do have, at least in Black America, are primarily supported by white corporate dollars through non-for-profits. The NAACP is not receiving the level of Black American donations that it was, and neither does the Urban League. And so that's how you have these weird situations, like the guy that owned the Clippers getting a Black Image Award for the local LA NAACP.
Right, the NAACP, but the NAACP started off as an integrations organization. So that was never an organization that was rooted in the
started by the Jews
tradition of audacious self-assertion.
I understand that nuance, but brother, I'm just saying of institutions that we have that we identify as Black, that the problem is in reality, they are not Black. Many of the HBCUs are, the biggest problem that they have is that their alumni do not give money back to increase the endowment. And when you do that, then you limit the amount of students that can go.
But HBCUs feel about not Black in themselves. They're not named after no Black person whatsoever.
Well, I mean, there is an argument, and remember, Dynast, we way back when we're going to try to have that show about it with Abube, whether they're Black or not. But I would argue this, you know, a point well taken, Complex, that the way to improve that is to have some sort of integration between HBCUs and African universities, just as we have exchange programs within the land grant white universities.
There is one with Wilberforce University. I used to work at Wilberforce.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm just saying we could improve what we have and do better to do the practical things. For example,
let me say this. Let me say this very quickly, because you brought up the Urban League and you brought up the NAACP. Those are civil rights organizations, members of the Big Six, that were always primarily funded by white people. So that the origins of these organizations were due to the funding, to the largesse, and due to white philanthropic support.
Facts.
Well, this takes me back to my core argument, though, of the problem is money. That the reason why these institutions are supported by these other groups is because we ourselves, our money is not where it needs to be, and we don't focus on that.
I would disagree with that. Those organizations, the ideology of those organizations were geared toward assimilating with whites, because Black people were putting their money with Black nationalist and pan-Africanist organizations, particularly during that time, the Universal Negro and Improvement Association.
Can I respond to what Philip said about money? Yeah, Philip is right. And Lumumba is right. These organizations were started by progressive white progressives with a particular agenda. Right?
I would argue paternalistic white liberals would be the proper term.
Well, they were progressive, but it was the progressive era in the late 19th century, and a lot of them were progressives. And progressives have a certain kind of ideology of centrally planning and economy, etc. But based on what Philip said about the money and lack of capital and the struggling Black banks, again, it goes back to policy. The reason why Black banks are struggling is the reason why small businesses in America are struggling, because of over-regulation. An investment banker by the name of Carol Roth, she wrote a book called America's War on Small Business, or The War on Small Business, and she documents how regulations crowd out small businesses and concentrate power in the hands of the big two, JP Morgan and whoever. How she documents how the financial sector, the capital markets are all rigged by the government to favor the incumbent big business and sideline small businesses.
We're not having that conversation anymore. We're moving forward.
Yeah, can we get back to
we're
topic?
Moving forward. We're not having a conversation anymore.
Oh, I thought you wanted to talk about Black capital and the reason why we don't have capital. Okay, all right.
I think that's what you're most interested in.
I have to
talk about all the time.
I was talking about why those organizations were funded by whites. For example, one of the reasons, and there's a great book on this titled The Struggle for Black Equality by Dr. Harvey Sitcom. I talks about the reason why white paternalistic liberals were funding the civil rights organizations was not because Black people wasn't supporting them financially, but they knew that by funding those organizations, they could quell the rise of radicalism in those Black political organizations. The same takes place at many HBCUs, particularly private HBCUs. White people fund these institutions to make sure that they could control the education, and that the education does not radicalize the Black student population. This is why Thomas Sankara stated, whoever feeds you imposes their will upon you.
Yeah. Great point. But and I hate brother Philippe. I think it's not Philip, but if Philippe left and brother Delroy, because they both made statements. And maybe I misunderstood brother Philippe, and maybe he wasn't talking about Pan-Africanism. He was just telling us we should support black banks. But brother Delroy earlier on mentioned how we should, like how he supports brother Dynast's channel and how he goes to black stores, right, and shops, goes out of his way to shop at black stores. That's still not Pan-Africanism. That's being pro-black. That's being, worried about your own people. That's putting your money into your own people. That's not Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is action.
It's a part of Pan-Africanism.
It's a part of it. It's a part of it.
No, for sure. No, it's a part.
Let him finish.
Yeah, let me finish, brother.
Retort.
Yes, it's definitely a part of it, no question about it. But if that's your example you're gonna give for Pan-Africanism, I support a YouTube channel, I buy at black stores. You don't understand what Pan-Africanism is. That is a tenet, right? That should be a part of what Pan-Africanism is. And I can tell you, most Pan-Africanists that I know that actually do the work also do those things, right? But it's not exclusive to those things. What work are you doing? What organization are you a part of? What work have you done for our people, right? Pan-Africanism, I have to get back to this, and Brother Lumumba explained this multiple times during the show. Pan-Africanism is an objective. It's an action, right? Not just buying at stores, but what work are you doing to organize our people, to uplift our people, to essentially create African sovereignty, global African sovereignty, right? I still don't think that many of the brothers on this panel understand what Pan-Africanism is, to be honest with you. You might need to give another description again, Brother Lumumba.
No, I really think that it's kind of like this sorry for cutting whoever's supposed to go next. Sorry for cutting you off. I just think sometimes we overcomplicate and intellectually masturbate what Pan-Africanism is. Again, if you want the best for your people globally, that's Pan-Africanism. But again, we just get into these, I'm doing more of the work and I'm on the streets and I'm a community organizer, and I'm in these streets and I'm organizing and doing all this. I just think we overcomplicate.
So let me say this, Dynast.
It's like, and not to cut you off. Let me cut you off. It's kind of like, Wisdom Never Sleeps. You got beacon going. It's we have a football team. Everybody can't run the ball. Everybody's not going to catch the ball. Some people are going to have certain roles.
Sounds like you're speaking about your football career at UGA, but go right ahead.
Here we go. Here we go. I just think, you have some people
yourself up for that one
who, again, want to gatekeep Pan-Africanism and minimize some people's contributions to Pan-Africanism because they just ain't in the streets. I mean, that's just my opinion.
So let me say this, and then we're going to pass it to Complex and Wisdom Never Speaks. Shout out to WNS. Appreciate you being here once again, brother. So here's tends to be the issue, because and I understand where Brother Jabril is coming from, because then it could become amorphous in nature. Like I said, that brother who literally argued with me for an hour, because I was at some event and we were like playing spades, and of course I was winning because I win at everything. And the brother for an hour talking about, well, engaging in miscegenation helps us, right? So, or you might have someone say, well, my contribution to our people is I'm trying to make sure that all of us accept Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. So that's why, Brother Jabril and I state the work that you're doing needs to be congruent with helping African people, become independent of foreign domination. That's the overall goal.
Exactly.
Yes, part of that is what we want to make sure that we're doing the work that we can to better our lives, our livelihood, right? We want to live better lives, but the overarching goal of Pan-Africanism is what? Freedom from foreign domination. Now there are other things that you could do within that. But once again, we want to make sure that the work that we are doing, right, is in line with that overall goal.
Precisely. And the thing is, I think what keeps happening is that we keep conflating pro-blackness, right? Being pro your own people with Pan-Africanism, right? Pro-blackness is definitely a paramount part of Pan-Africanism, but it's not the only thing. But a lot of people in this, conversation, if you will, not a debate, this conversation, think that pro-blackness equals Pan-Africanism. I would say you're sorely mistaken, and you need to actually study what Pan-Africanism is.
Right. And very quickly before I let Complex and Wisdom Never Speaks go. So I looked up the president of Guinea. He is married to a white woman. I don't know what he's doing that's considered revolutionary Pan-Africanism, because from what I've just read, he actually has been accused of human rights violations. And he even stated, and he's quoted stating, that when he took power, he told ministers to not revolt against him during the first meeting, or otherwise he would consider an act of rebellion, right? And there would be severe consequences, right? So just something to consider. And even ECOWAS, we know ECOWAS is in flux right now. There are a number of issues there. ECOWAS were even seeking to create sanctions based on his administration to some of the things he was doing. So I don't know what he's doing that's rooted in revolutionary Pan-Africanism, but I would argue, and Brother Jabril would argue, that if you are married to a non-African, that there's no way on the HE hockey sticks that you could be accepted holistically. I don't know how. I can't allow. I can't see this man being a Pan-Africanist and he's married to a non-African.
And on top of that, his snow bunny wife is actually worked for the French National Police or military, one of the two. So she was actually worked for the So it's a lot of red flags with that man. I definitely wouldn't consider him a Pan-Africanist. And with the information that's even coming out of Guinea, and there's not a lot of information coming out. The information that's coming out that I've seen is not pretty, and it definitely doesn't look like Pan-Africanism.
You would argue that the information that you're receiving is not positive.
Definitely not. Yeah.
Okay, very good, very good. Woo-wee. I mean, whoo. All right. Complex Wisdom Never Sleeps.
All right. Lumumba, can you name off the list of Malcolm X's I don't know what you want to call categories for OAAU again, one by one, and I'm going to answer to them. I'm going to show you how simple this is.
All right, give me 1 second. Let me bring it up for you all who are still watching. We got a lot of people. Make sure you hit the thumbs up button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Subscribe and share. You're watching Lumumba Speaks on a dual broadcast with Search for Oaaou, Brother Prince, Dynast, Amir here on YouTube. So yes, basic aims and objectives: self-determination, national unity. The basic unity program, first restoration.
Okay, let's stop right there. What myself is doing with that, and I'm gonna add what I witnessed of Dynast as well. So not because he's my frat brother, because I witnessed it. That's it. So self-determination, right? Kuji Chagulia, correct? Lumumba?
Yes, that is what self-determination is. Kuji Chagulia, yes.
All right. For myself and the organizations I'm a part of and have been a part of, even Justice or Else, with communities dealing with Nation Islam in Chicago. I'm in Chicago, but I'm also international. I have testified in front of the United Nations when Chicago was one of the areas they went to for testimonies was Chicago. When they came, I as one of many testified. And that's with the UNIA, OAAU, Chicago branch UNIA, Chicago branch of Moore Science Temple, so on and so forth. We testified for self-determination and we testified to state why we were being blocked in self-determination. Self-determination. Dynast Amir, self-determined, decides to go to Africa and link Africa with America and whatever other place he can touch.
So real quick, brother, if I could. So restoration here per the OAAU, Malcolm states is we must, one, communicate to one another the truth about American slavery and the terrible effects of it. He says we must learn all that we can about ourselves. We will have to know the whole story of how we were kidnapped, brutalized, so on and so forth. So the restoration was about, I would argue, addressing the miseducation regarding
okay, then you gonna go any further. Okay, we're gonna do that. Dynast Amir and myself practices Ifa. Okay, Isheshe Ifa, which is restoration of our traditions before we were brought here. Is that acceptable, my brother?
So I think you're looking at a religious aspect, according to Malcolm.
I'm not because it's traditional.
Right, I understand, but according to Malcolm, the restoration was based on us learning the facts about the brutal Holocaust of enslavement. That's I'm looking at it right now. This is what he's stating
so
in the
I'm gonna add to
restoration.
that then. In Isheshe, in Ifa, they give their point of the history which they were a part of as primary resources. Now we're gonna go, with the, science in college. Primary resource, Ifa, Isheshe, were primary resources and witnesses to what happened in our, I don't like to use the word, but our so-called Holocaust. And
it was the Holocaust, yes.
Yes, and it'd be places
African
for
Holocaust.
us.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be places for us what happened. And right now, we are, I don't know if I should say this, Dynast, involved with making sure that African Americans actually switch places and be able to be traded for each country in economics, spirit, whatever else, and both continents. That's one. Can you go to the next one?
Reorientation. In order to keep the African American enslaved, it was necessary to limit our thinking to the shores of Africa to prevent us from identifying. This part is so the organization African American Unity would develop, and the African American people a keen awareness of our relationship with the world at large and clarify our roles, rights, and responsibilities as human beings. We can learn as much about Africa by reading informative books and by listening to the experience of those who have traveled there. But many of us can travel to the land of our choice and experience for ourselves.
Oh, you already hit that for Dynast. Ain't he doing?
Yes, reorientation.
Okay.
Education.
So, okay.
Is the next step. African enslavement
schools.
The slave masters developed a racist education system which justified to its posterity the evil deeds that have been committed against the African people and their descendants. Too often, the slave himself participates so completely in the system that he justifies having been enslaved and oppressed. Right, the organization African American Unity would devise original educational methods and procedures which will liberate the minds of our children from the vicious lies and distortions that are fed to us from the cradle that keep us mentally enslaved.
Okay, personally, I deal with I have a university worldwide. When I went with Dynast to go to Sierra Leone and get my family citizenship, Dynast had us visit schools there. Dynast is building a computer lab there and other things. Myself, I'm opening up schools there. I have made the proper people. I have met with the proper people to do so, and I have registered a international business there, as well as Dynast has.
Okay.
And it's not strictly Western based at all, and it's not English based. Because we are traditionalists, and we go over to the continent. We meet with chiefs, we meet with traditionalists, and we both have gotten initiated in each country. I have not gotten initiated in Sierra Leone yet, but Nigeria and other places, yes.
Let me, if I can interject, I'm not fully initiated in Ifa or Voodoo, but I'm part of secret society in Sierra Leone where I'm initiated.
Okay. And the next is economic security. After the Emancipation Proclamation, when the system of slavery changed from chattel slavery to wage slavery, it was realized that the Afro-American constituted the largest homogeneous ethnic group with a common origin and common group experiences in the United States, and if allowed to exercise economic or political freedom, would be in a short period of time own this country. Therefore, racists in this government developed techniques that would keep the Afro-American people economically dependent upon the slave masters, economically slaves, 20th century slaves. The organization African American Unity would take measures to free our people from economic slavery. One way of accomplishing this will be to maintain a technician pool that is a bank of technicians, in the same manner that blood banks have been established to furnish blood to those who need it at the time it is needed. We must establish a technician bank. We must do this so that the newly independent nation of Africa can turn to us, who are their Afro-American brothers, for the technicians they will need now and in the future. Thereby, we will be developing an open market for the many skills we possess, and at the same time, we will be supplying Africa with the skills she can best use. This project would therefore be one of mutual cooperation and mutual benefit.
Okay. Dynast and I are both members of Kappa Alpha Psi. That is a strictly African-American organization meant for uplift of college students, but as well as the community. That's one. That's on this continent. Over there, we both have businesses over there. We both hire both African Americans and Africans, so on and so forth, and make sure they're able to go to both countries. Whereas I have assisted them in getting visas to come over here for Africans, and Africans over there have assisted us in getting visas over there, and we switch.
Okay, and then last but not least is self-defense. In order to enslave a people and keep them subjugated, their right of self-defense, they must be constantly terrorized, brutalized, and murdered. These tactics of suppression have been developed to a new high by vicious racists whom the United States government seems unwilling or incapable of dealing with in terms of the law of this land. Before their emancipation, it was the black man who suffered humiliation, torture, castration, and murder. Recently, our women and children more and more are becoming the victims of savage racists whose appetite for blood increases daily and whose deeds of depravity seem to be openly encouraged by all law enforcement agencies. Over 5,000 African Americans have been lynched since the Emancipation Proclamation, and not one murderer has been brought to justice. The organization African American Unity, being aware of the increased violence being visited upon the Afro-American, and the open sanction of this violence by murder by the police departments throughout this country and the federal agencies, do affirm our right and obligation to defend ourselves in order to survive as a people. We encourage all African Americans to defend themselves against the wanton attacks of racist aggressors who so aim to deny us the guarantees of the United States Charter of Human Rights and of the Constitution of the United States. The Organization of African American Unity will take those private steps that are necessary to ensure the survival of the African American people in the face of racist aggression and the defense of our women and children. We are within our rights to see to it that the Afro-American people who fulfill their obligations to the United States government, repay taxes, and serve in the armed forces of this country like American citizens do, also exact from this government the obligations that it owes us as a people, or exact these obligations ourselves. Needless to say, among this number, we include protection of certain inalienable rights, such as life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, in areas where the United States government has shown itself unable or unwilling to bring to justice the racist oppressors, murderers who kill innocent children and adults. The Organization of African American Unity advocates that the African American people ensure ourselves that justice is done, whatever the price and by any means necessary.
Okay. So personally, as I've already explained, I'm one of many who has testified for the United Nations, in which the United Nations actually voted our way. I can't say it means as much to America, because I did get a head nod from the Federal Judiciary Court on, well, America didn't really sign the UN Declaration as much as people think they did. They gave a head nod, number one. However, we still supposedly won the decision from the UN. Next, owner of private detective agencies and security companies. Next, teach law and civics in the hood, what people call the hood. Next, paralegal for free, like Thurgood Marshall used to be, for the people in the hood, and so on and so forth. And educating them on rights, using my degrees as an educator to educate the hood on rights, civil.
Can't hear you, brother.
I think we lost him.
Yeah, we lost you somehow.
Hey, brother, Wisdom never sleeps. If you want to call back in, you can.
Well, he said he has a conference call
committee with Nation Islam, and I will leave Dynast to get in on his own part of that portion. But I believe Dynast only, and I tapped Dynast with him unbeknownst, because he's younger than I am. And the thing is, instead of talking about what he's not doing, the Pan-Africanism or whatever, but he knew it or not what I was doing, I called him and said, hey, we get people come over back and forth to both countries from each area, because Pan-Africanism is the diaspora. And so I tapped him and he got right into it. I went on, the first time, not the first, second time I went to Africa, third time, and I've actually been on about 3 or 4 hours. I've been on 2 of your tours, but I actually met with you on 4 tours on the continent. So, and you have shown me and let me meet traditional chiefs, traditional people, see how the people really live, not the tourist part, not the regular commercial tourism part, but you actually made sure that I got to meet like Africans, like true holistic Africans in all facets. And I thank you for that, Dynast. And I think everybody else who's gone on the trip should be thanking you for that. However, you can answer the rest, Dynast, if you may.
Yeah, so we're going to get ready to close on out, so I'm going to allow everybody to give their final thoughts.
Yeah, hey, I appreciate the conversation. Conversations like these are important. I wish Wisdom Never Sleeps will call back in, but he has a conference call. But yeah, man, appreciate it. Everyone, thanks for joining.
All right, no doubt. Make sure y'all subscribe, like, and share. Until next time, y'all know what to do. Always bet on black. Peace.
Peace.
And hey, Dynast, when we had that competition, I won't